Welcome to Pack Talk Podcast, and I'm honored today to be sitting here with some devil dogs. And you know, if you're the listener, you know, once a Marine, always a Marine. Now, these two gentlemen with me right here, we deployed with the 13th MEU together. I think it was in 2016, somewhere around there. Yep. Again, I told you guys my mind is kind of, my memory is failing me.
Yeah.
15, I have early dementia, okay? 2016, something like that.
Yeah.
But we deployed together, 13th MEU, lifelong friendship after that. Been through some shit together, and honored to be sitting here with these guys today to talk about their stories because they're both retired Marines. Also, both were you guys both LDOs?
Yep.
Yeah, both LDOs.
Both LDO,
Yep.
so that means they were enlisted, then they went officer, so they've got a bunch of experience, bunch of things that they went through, bunch of lessons learned, and so we're here today to talk about that and get some of their stories. So I've got Nick Tazza with me and Dustin Heffel. We're going to start with Dustin. So Dustin, talk to us about how you first got into the Marines. Like, tell us that story, then kind of progress us through your career from there.
Yeah. Thanks, Chad. Yeah, it's great being here. It's an honor to be with you guys, and I'm definitely excited to see you and Nick again.
Hell yeah. And also, for the listener, Nick and Dustin's first time having Jocko.
That's right.
And the listeners know we're Jocko affiliates, so they're into Jocko now.
Look, I gotta say it. Jocko Go, this stuff is actually pretty legit.
Well, Dustin's about to get fucking amped here.
What's this?
Yeah.
Lemonade here later.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you, the drive home is going to be interesting because I'm gonna be.
Well, here in about 10 minutes, you're gonna be feeling it.
Yeah. That's good. And look, I got another one when this starts.
When shit's gonna hit the fan.
Oh yeah. Well, shit always hits the fan when I'm around.
So, Dustin, let's hear your stories, man. How to get started for you going in the Marines?
Yeah. So I, my dad was a mechanic, worked in the auto industry, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I had a couple of relatives in my extended family that were in, the Army, National Guard, and but it wasn't like a military-focused family.
Nobody Marines other than before you.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. So there wasn't like a military influence that like was pushing me that way. But when I was in school, I was just surrounded by a bunch of people that were convinced that the key to success was go to college, get a degree, which meant a good job so they could buy a house. And then nobody really had a plan after that. And I wondered, there's got to be more out there. So I'd always gravitated toward the military or military-like things, and I chose the Marine Corps. And I joined when I was 17, and my parents were not. When you're 17, they have to sign for you, and they were not going to sign for me. And they wanted me to go to college, and I told my mom, I said, you either are going to sign and I leave with your support at 17, or the day I turn 18, I'm leaving without your support. And so that was kind of it.
Yeah.
And so I left. And so when I got to recruit training, I quickly realized that I had made a huge mistake. This was a really bad idea.
What drew you to the Marines originally? Like, why'd you go Marines? Like, was there something that drew you there?
Yeah, I had a friend in high school who he joined the Marine Corps. He graduated high school early, and then he went to boot camp, and I went to go see him graduate. And so I was on the parade deck, and I saw the platoons march across, and I saw the guidons, I saw the swords, I saw the uniforms, and I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
I want this. And so I got down there, and this was in 2001. I cut school when I was a senior to go to MEPS.
Nice.
And I was waiting to go to boot camp, and then September 11th goes down. And then I went a couple weeks after that. And then right after I left, my parents got a pretty nasty divorce. So my home life kind of disintegrated. There was really no home to go back to.
Right.
So
after you had left, this happened.
Right.
Really.
And so, so I knew that even if this was a bad idea, this was the life I chose, and I better get with it.
Yeah.
So I joined as a private, and I spent 8 years enlisted. I ended up being a drill instructor at the end of my enlisted time, and then when I was a drill instructor, this Warrant Officer program was announced, and one of my lieutenants, he told us, hey, if anybody wants to put in to be a Warrant Officer, let me know. I had no idea what a Warrant Officer is. I never seen one, and my first reaction was, I don't want to do that. But I was Megan, my wife now, we were dating at the time, and I thought, well, officers get more money. They probably have better quality of life, which means I could take better care of my family. Okay, and I put in a application
for the Warrant Officer.
Yeah, and I totally forgot about it. And then a few months later, I got selected, and so I got orders to Okinawa, Japan, and so Megan and I had to get married quick because we were going to get married the next year. And I got a phone call on a Wednesday that I was about to get 2-year orders unaccompanied, and I was like, well, I'm getting married next year, and the colonel was like, no, you don't understand, you're going to Okinawa by yourself unless you get married like soon. And I said, well, give me a week. So
Holy
Monday morning, shotgun wedding. Monday morning, 8:00, San Diego County Courthouse. Megan and I showed up, did our thing, and I ran down and put her in the system as my spouse, and we went to Japan for 3 years. So I spent 5 years as a chief warrant officer. Loved every minute of it. But in my field, there was this LDO track where you could still do the job, but as a commissioned officer, and I thought that was pretty cool. And so I put in for the LDO program, and I got selected and went from chief warrant officer 3 to captain.
Oh, really? It was just a jump right there?
Yeah.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah. And so that was in 2015. And so a couple months after that, I got orders to 1 MEF, and the guy that I was supposed to replace had orders to Camp Lejeune, but he didn't want to go. And so the short version of that one is the powers that be told him either you PCS, oh, I'm sorry, not Camp Lejeune. He was going to go to Fibron 1. That's right. And he didn't want to deploy. And they said, well, if you don't deploy, then you need to retire because you already have orders in the system. Well, he ended up retiring. And so they told me on a Thursday, hey, Captain Heffel, you're now the Fibron 1 CCO. You need to be down there on Monday. And oh, by the way, we need you to go down to the S1 shop and get your own orders.
That was 2015?
Yeah, that was 2015.
That was workup.
So that was the week before we onloaded for PMIT.
Dude, you and me must have arrived at the same time.
Same day. So Monday, if you recall, when the MEU was onloading, is the day that I was checking into the Fibron.
What?
Yeah. So
I thought you were there way before me.
No.
Holy cow!
I showed up. Yeah, I showed up. I had no idea what was going on. I saw Nick at the lot, and I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm the new Fibron combat cargo officer."
That was the first time you guys met.
First time.
Yeah, first time we met.
Yeah, and Nick was like bug-eyed out of his mind because he had gear and Marines everywhere, and the ships were crazy. It was nuts, and I was like, okay, well, cool. I guess we'll figure this out. I got to go to TAC Traeger Pack in Point Loma, which is where the Fibron and the MEU staff were. So I hadn't even seen the Boxer at the time. Like I don't even know what a Fibron is, and I just met Nick. So I was like, okay, I know one guy.
Holy cow!
Yeah, and then we deployed, but. My journey through the Marine Corps, all those enlisted officer, I never really had a plan to do any of that. I just kind of followed, achievement wherever that led me. And, I made it a habit of always volunteering for stuff. As an enlisted guy, my first duty station was in Quantico with HMX-1, the Presidential Helicopter Squadron. And it was a pretty, it was a pretty easy unit. Fairly prestigious, I guess.
So what does that unit entail? You're like with the presidential helicopters, and what was your job at that time? Yeah,
so I was in their S4 shop, their logistics office.
Okay,
and so
you're keeping the helicopters running, supplies.
Not even that. I was just a little bit of everything from logistics planning to transportation planning to
paperwork,
a lot of paperwork. Yeah, and when I left that place, or when getting close to my time there, I had got there when I was a private first class in E2, and then I became a sergeant. And I had a mentor of mine, very important mentor. He told me, he was like, hey, it's time for you to take your stripes and roll out. And you're going to love this story, actually. I love telling this story. So he said, you need to take your stripes and you need to leave. You need to go back. You need to get out into the wild, out in the Marine Corps wild.
Right.
And he said, don't take any easy assignments. They'll probably give you duty station preference, but you need to go do something challenging. And, there was a building up there on Quantico that host the Manpower and Reserve Affairs Command when they cut all the orders for all the enlisted Marines up there. Yeah. And I knew that my field was governed by a master gunnery sergeant. I didn't know who this guy was. I was a brand new sergeant. Right. I was a nobody in the grand scheme of things.
Real quick for the listener, a master gunnery sergeant is a very high-ranking enlisted.
The highest in rank. Right. The highest, E9.
E9,
yeah.
Right? And so you were an E2?
E5.
E5, right? So you're very low on the totem pole compared to this guy.
Yes. So the gunnery sergeant, the E7 that I worked for at the time, he made the mistake of leaving early one day. And he left me by myself. And that's probably it's not a good thing.
Not a good idea to leave Heffel by himself.
Yeah. Do not leave me by myself because I am very unpredictable. Chaos is about to go down. So I decided, well, I need to take my stripes and I need to roll out. So I get in my car and I drive up to the manpower building and I find this master gunnery sergeant.
Yeah.
I walk right to his desk.
And normally they don't. You just don't. You're not a sergeant just walking into.
Right.
Nobody's.
Right.
Yeah, this is unheard
Hey,
of,
I'm
right?
looking for orders.
Yeah.
So this. I
Holy
can only
cow.
imagine how this went.
This gives you an idea of this story right here will tell you, will give you a foundation of how my career kind of path went. And I walked right into his. I mean, I was deep into this building. I mean,
Yeah.
there were no windows
You're
where
just
I was.
wandering around
I was
till
just
you-
walking around acting
Right.
like I worked there.
Okay.
In fact, I think I grabbed an empty folder because
Oh,
I
really?
was in an area I knew I didn't belong, and I just grabbed a folder and I thought, well, if anybody sees me and they see I'm carrying a folder, they're going to assume I work there.
So you had learned how to blend in at that
Yeah,
point.
so I grabbed an empty folder and I just kind of navigated red desk signs until I found the 04, which is the code for logistics, monitor, Master Gunnery Sergeant Bellavance. And I was like, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And so
I
I
remember
came.
that name too.
Yeah. And I walked to his desk and I introduced myself and he looked dumbfounded. And he was like, who are you again? And I told him and I said, hey, good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Heffel and I need to take my stripes and roll out. I need orders.
Right.
And he said, okay, where do you want to go? And I had just got back from airborne school. And I said, well, I want to jump out of planes and I want to go to Iraq like yesterday with the baddest unit in the Marine Corps. And this
Yeah.
is 2005
Yeah.
or 4. It was 2004. And he opened up this big binder and he said, I need a guy to go to Force Reconnaissance Company. What do you think of that? And I was like, are they going to Iraq? And he's like, oh yeah, they're going to Iraq. And I was
Yeah.
like, done. Full send. So 4
Were you
months.
dating Megan at this time? or
No,
you- okay,
no, it was
so,
way
So
before.
you're a single guy.
Yep, single guy.
Not a factor.
Yep. So 4 months later,
Yeah, right.
'Cause you're about to be
Bam,
busy.
bam,
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
going to
I
recon.
thought, hey, I was
You're
like,
gonna
hey.
go to Iraq. We're
yeah,
gonna get
I'm
some
going to
shit
Iraq
done.
because
Right.
I knew I'd want to be a drill instructor at the time, but they
Okay.
offered me to go to drill instructor school out of presidential duty, and I said,
But you had to earn your stripes first.
well, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I thought, well, there's no way I can train recruits who are going to Iraq without going to Iraq first, right? Because remember at the time, this is the height of OIF.
Right. Right.
And Iraq and Afghanistan, there's fighting going on in both. So I had to deploy first. So that little mini story, me just walking up, just kind of, the audacity was
Right.
was out of control.
Right.
But
But it worked out well for you.
Yeah, but that's kind of how it's kind of how I rolled in uniform.
Oh, for sure.
And I got punched in the face a few times for doing crazy stuff. But I tell you, the best way to predict the future is kind of take control of it. And so,
Yeah. What happened when you got to reconnaissance?
yeah,
How'd that go?
Yeah,
Oh.
I got there and
Sergeant Heffel became staff sergeant.
Oh yeah,
we
that's
talked about this earlier.
That's an off-camera story. I'll tell you about that one later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good. It
Give
was
us the clean version of
Yeah, the
arriving at reconnaissance. What was that like?
So I show up and I was fresh off of presidential duty. I was my uniform was immaculate, and I walk in and the XO said I had an in-call with this major. The company was in Iraq at the time, so it was just
really?
a skeleton crew. Yeah, and he was like, "Is your uniform ready for inspection?" I said, "Absolutely, sir." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm sure it is." Anyway, I see you have airborne wings, so good. Go to supply, go draw your gear, and we're jumping next week. So you better go get refreshed on airborne status. And this is pre-MARSOC, right? So Force
Right.
Reconnaissance is the reconnaissance operators out of the recon battalions. And this is so instead of companies, they had platoon elements. So it was a small unit.
So basically, at the time for Marine Corps, this was more of their special operations.
Yes, this was the special operations
Right,
unit.
in the Marine Corps.
Yes. And so there it was small, so they didn't really, your MOS was kind of irrelevant. They saw you as you're a Marine, so you're going to be whatever we tell you to be, and then you're going to be your MOS after that. So I was a headquarters guy, and they said our headquarters guys are drivers, they're gunners, they're jump masters, they're the support element so that it frees up the operators to do operator things.
Right.
And I thought, Well, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah.
This is going to be really painful. And this is going to hurt a lot.
Yeah.
But hey, look, this is it. This is what I signed up with. Again, this is the life I chose, so I better get happy.
Right.
So I went to Iraq with them. I came back. MARSOC got activated. And I got selected to stay in the unit and become, at the time, it was 1st Marine Special Operations Battalion. Now it's called Marine Raider Battalion. And I went to Afghanistan with them in 2007. And
so you stayed with them from when you first got there through that time.
Yep.
2007, you guys are deploying.
Yep. 2006, we went to Iraq. 2007, I went to Afghanistan. And then 2008, I figured again, well, now I was a staff sergeant, and I thought, well, I got to take my stripes, and I got to roll out. I got to go do something else. And so at that time, okay, I'm going to go be a drill instructor. And I went to go be a drill instructor. And and my time there was interesting. I went there to train recruits and, make somebody hate life, just like they did when I came through. But, I realized really quickly that the Marine Corps takes all walks of life, and there's only 2 recruit depots. There's, Mississippi River East, you go to Parris Island, South Carolina. Mississippi River West, you go to San Diego. And
so when you went to boot camp, you went to San Diego?
I went to San Diego, and
you
then
were
I was
DI in San Diego.
Yeah. And what I discovered was, I had all kinds of people in my platoons. These platoons are 90+ recruits. I had kids that were rich, poor, smart, not so smart, abused, very abusive homes in some of them. So you had all of them come together, and you got 12 weeks to take all of that, a bunch of individuals, and make them into a collective hive mind. Yeah. And suddenly 12 weeks doesn't seem like a long amount of time.
Right.
And what I realized at the time was there were a lot of kids that saw the drill instructors not as drill instructors, but as father figures, as older brothers, as a male figure that they aspired to be, and that's when my duty as a drill instructor took on a new kind of. I saw it through a different lens. I wasn't here to just make people do push-ups and make them scream, but they were looking at everything I did and that I didn't do, the things that I said, that I didn't say, what my uniform looked like, and they were trying to be me.
Right.
And that was huge. That was for me. That was a huge shift, and I saw the world a lot differently.
From the outside looking in at Marine drill instructors, because these days social media is prevalent, so everyone's seen the reels, or a lot of people have seen the videos.
Yeah.
The Marine drill instructors, Air Force, you know what I'm saying, and then all the other ones. But the Marines definitely stand above the rest.
Right.
When it comes to the way that people think about drill instructors and Marine boot camp, and I believe Marine boot camp is longer than the other service branches, right?
Yeah, it is.
But, people think, Marine drill instructors are the top end of the tier, which is true, right?
Right.
And, going through Marine boot camp as a recruit, like what you're saying, looking at your drill instructor in a different frame of mind, right? And we've seen the movies like Full Metal Jacket, right? Where we got that Marine Corps boot camp experience. And people are like, hey, well, the drill instructors are just hard on these guys, right? They're yelling at them, screaming at them, making them do push-ups and all this. But what they don't see is as boot camp goes on, that relationship kind of changes, which is what you're talking about right now, right?
Yeah.
As that boot camp experience progresses, that relationship changes.
Yeah. The biggest challenge is taking a kid that was raised a certain way in a certain environment, and you don't get to pick what that is. You could have a kid who is very well off, very affluent, very used to having the world kind of cater to them. And then the next, and their rack mate that shares the same kind of bunk bed.
Yeah.
That kid may have not had a dad, or came from an incredibly abusive home where they were maybe the only boy, and it was him, a mom, and a couple sisters, and they are the father figure. So I would say that being a drill instructor there was a saying in DI school, in drill instructor school, they said you can either be ordinary or you can be extraordinary. And if you're here, then you must want to be extraordinary, so you better act like it. So, and I would tell you that the Marine Corps is probably the best at adhering to our legacy and to those who have gone before, and our history, and our esprit de corps. That's kind of what binds us together as Marines. And so we're always cognizant of, this isn't, at the time, this isn't my Marine Corps. This was given to me. The legacy of the Marine Corps was handed to me, and it's not mine to tarnish. It's mine to improve, and then I have to hand it over to somebody. So And that's kind of how I saw the world. I was here to do a job and train recruits and make Marines. Mm-hmm. And I was either going to be somebody they remembered positively for the rest of their life, or I was going to be an example of what they didn't want to be.
Right.
So yeah, being a drill instructor, when you're in that position and you're standing in front of these platoons, it's intimidating because you got 90 people looking at you. Mm-hmm. Like a bunch of blank slates, and they're kind of subconsciously saying, "Okay, tell us how we need to be for the rest of our lives."
And whenever you are a drill instructor, something that a lot of people probably don't realize, they think about all the stuff that the recruits are doing, mm-hmm. but the drill instructor is doing more.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to prepare for that day,
yeah.
which means you're up before the recruits. You got to get them up.
That's right.
After they go to bed, you got to put them to bed. You got to tuck them in their sheets.
That's right.
All that kind of stuff. And then you still have other things you have to do.
Oh, yeah. Battles are fought and won at night. Yeah. So you go to bed and the drill instructors are still up. But I'll tell you that, recruits, you go through boot camp one time. Mm-hmm. A drill instructor has gone through as a recruit, and they've gone through drill instructor school, which is boot camp to the 10,000th power. That
are there drill instructors running drill instructor school? Is
that
how it goes?
Yeah. So these are, drill instructor school is ran by drill instructors who have been there on the depot for many years. So they already know the game.
Right.
And so you get to pass that. And then you get to go through recruit training over and over and over as a drill instructor.
How many recruit trainings does an average drill instructor do when they're doing that?
I think average is between 5 to 7 platoon cycles, maybe 3 months at a time. Mm-hmm. But I loved my time as a drill instructor. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have given up for anything. I found out a lot about myself. I probably learned more about myself than I did anything else. What I was capable of, and I developed the ability to suffer in silence more so than other people. And that skill, I know it sounds kind of dumb, but being able to suffer in silence and still make things happen and still accomplish something has served me very well. Where other people complain or they hide or they avoid challenge or adversity, if you just get subjected to that, or you subject yourself to adversity over and over, suddenly it becomes relatively easy to endure.
Yeah.
And it has helped me a lot to this day, actually. So
intense, dude.
Yeah.
Intense.
So the ability to suffer in silence helped me through a lot of different things. I was able to kind of, rely on myself. I knew what I was capable of. I knew what I was not capable of doing. I knew what my limits were, and it served me well. So, but I tell you, going from being a drill instructor to being an officer, that was a huge shift. Everything, and I learned a lot of lessons that normally people don't learn unless they go from enlisted to officer. One thing in particular, I got in trouble for running in my uniform.
Really?
Yeah.
As an officer?
As a warrant officer. Yeah.
Really?
So our platoons are.
Or...
No, I was in my camis and I was running down the hallway because I had forgotten something. So I went back to my room to go get it. And my captain at the time, our platoon commander, they were all captains. Mm-hmm. He was digging into me about running. He said, officers do not run unless it's time for PT. And I thought he was crazy.
I didn't know that was a thing.
And he said, well, if you were enlisted still and you saw an officer running across your unit area, what would you think? And I was like, oh, maybe he's motivated or he's late.
Or some shit's going down.
Well, that's what he said. He said, you would start looking around worried. Why is there an officer running? That is not normal.
Right.
So that was a lesson. And then the other thing was we had PT one evening. So it was after class, and he said, okay, 1700, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody show up for PT. Mm-hmm. Well, what are you going to do when somebody says 5 o'clock? You're going to be there at 4:45. Right. So we all show up early. My platoon of 30 plus warrant officers. And he came out and he said, okay, who was early? Well, we were all early.
Right.
And we all got in trouble. And he said, officers are never early, because if you as the officers say 5 o'clock, your platoon sergeant is going to have the Marines out at 4:45. If you show up at 4:45, the next time you say 5 o'clock,
they're at 3:30.
They're going to be there at 4:30, 3:30, and they're going to back it up.
Yeah.
So if you say 5 o'clock, you show up at 4:58. You look at your senior enlisted and ask if everybody's there, and you step off. So
good life lesson.
Yeah. So that's another lesson.
For leaders in general.
That's right. Yeah. So I would say, to your point about leaders in general, what got you here is not going to get you there. What had made me successful as an enlisted Marine, while a lot of it was still applicable as an officer,
Yeah.
I had to let go of a lot of it. I knew that the game had changed, and I had to change along with it.
What I think is unique because, me, I wasn't prior enlisted, right? I went to college and then I was commissioned. You guys being enlisted, going to officer, you have to learn these lessons how to behave differently.
Yeah.
Right? Because your default is to behave like you had been behaving as an enlisted Marine.
That's right.
It's hard.
So that's a challenge.
Yeah, you definitely want to do things the way you did them as you were enlisted. Like when it comes to PT, and like you want to go out there and like you see them getting formed up for PT, and you're like, what the hell? Like you want to go out there and take charge because like, nah, this is how it should be, and you just gotta sit back and like just let them do it. This is their thing. And then if you wanted, you could go talk to that NCO or that staff NCO. I'm like, hey, next time let's try to do it like this. So it's challenging for sure.
I feel like something that could be challenging, just like in general operation is like as an enlisted Marine, let's say you're a sergeant or a staff sergeant, you're used to just going to talking to, someone that's a lower rank or addressing things amongst your peers. But now when you're a warrant officer, you can't just do that. You got to go through the proper chain of command. Otherwise, you're kind of negating the chain of command.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure some people learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah. The other part of it was that people think that as a warrant officer, you can be enlisted and officer at the same time, and that is 100% not true. The enlisted Marines will see you as you're an officer and you were one of us, so we expect you to know better. Your bar is higher.
Right.
So you should respect what we do, and you should respect that enough to stay out of our business, so to speak. So those warrant officers that think they could, and the analogy I was given was, if you're in a canoe and you get to shore, you can't have 1 foot on the shore and 1 foot in the canoe.
Right.
You're out of the canoe on shore, moving inland.
Right.
But I would tell you that going from warrant officer to commission officer, that was another shift. And so when I became,
I think that was even harder.
yeah,
What was the major challenge or learning lessons there?
Well, so a lot of people that I met, they did not want to become limited duty officers because they would give up wearing their warrant officer bars. And when you see a warrant officer, there's an instant recognition of what they are.
Yeah.
Well, I went from being a Chief Warrant Officer 3, which I really had no predators at that point. Nobody was really messing with me, and then I became a captain. Well, there was nothing about me that said prior enlisted, Chief Warrant Officer, anything.
Right.
I guess the only advantage I had is I had gold airborne wings, which that gave raised an eyebrow. Like he may have been a couple places, but
Well, you went to dive. Didn't you go to dive school?
I did
too?
not. I almost did. But we were going to Iraq.
That's
so
right. You got too busy.
Yeah, too busy. I offered to go from dive school to Iraq, and they were like, "No, you're going to Iraq early before everybody. So you leave in 2 weeks." So,
well, in the Marine Corps too, the airborne wings are not common.
They are not.
So
and actually,
if someone's wearing them, it means something they've been to a special unit or a special assignment.
Yeah,
right?
and those
so that would attract attention.
Yeah, and those wings actually helped me out at a future command. I'll tell you about that in a second. So I became a captain. We did our deployment together, and right after we came back, I went to Hawaii. I went to Marine Forces Pacific, which is the Marine component to Pacific Command, and I was a captain.
Yeah,
and that was, but being an LDO didn't resonate with anybody, and so I had to learn how to be a staff officer really quick. And Nick's right. I think that shift was a little harder because as a warrant officer, when you walk into a room, you have instant recognition and a little bit of credibility.
Just because of your
people
warrant
see
officer
your
rank.
yeah they see your
bars.
That's right. So they see your bars and they know, okay, we know what we should expect out of you.
Right.
If you just show up as a captain, there's none of that. You have to re-earn your credibility every time you walk into a room. And there were some people who didn't want to have to do that. They thought, well, I had already earned it as a warrant officer. I should be able to have that wherever I go. As a captain, you're just a captain. Yeah. Just a captain.
Yeah, well, most captains in the Marine Corps, they might have, 6 years in.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
As
young,
a captain in LDO, you got probably at least 14, 15 years already in.
Yeah.
There's a big difference on time and grade and time and service right there.
That's
so they look at you, they're just like, oh, you're just a little, company off.
Are captains still JOs technically, junior officers? Are they?
Yeah.
So like
company
in
grade.
the military, Officer 1, Officer 2, Officer 3, those are what we call junior officers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So whenever you walk somewhere, you're basically amongst the other officers. You're basically a piece of shit, right? You got to earn your reputation. In that
I would
room,
say there's a divide between your captains and the majors. The majors are now, that's that field grade portion. So that's a different class of officer. But yeah, as a captain, but to other, at those higher commands, it's all majors, lieutenant colonels, colonels.
Right.
And so as a captain, you are the junior officer. I mean, pretty much in every room.
Right.
So you're going to click slides. You're going to set up chairs, and yeah. So that.
So you're walking into these rooms, but people don't know you have all this experience. You've been in X amount of years.
Right.
They think you're just a guy that's been in 6 years or whatever.
Right.
And when you look as young as him,
Yeah.
Well, that was another
Dustin
part.
does
Yeah.
not age.
Right.
Dustin
That,
doesn't
well,
age.
that
He's
was
younger as time
right.
goes
So that was another problem I had. I was a fast mover through the ranks. So I was young in age, and I looked young, and that did not help me. And so, but the other part that was difficult at that level was at PACOM, Pacific Command at the time. You know, this is 2017, 18. You remember North Korea was out of control.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody was convinced we were going to war.
Still are.
Right.
Still are out of control, you know.
So I would walk in these rooms and they're briefing, you know, the Air Force is briefing B-1 and B-2 bombers coming from the mainland, you know, going to Guam, the B-52 squadrons. And the Navy has got multiple carrier strike groups. The Army has got armored divisions on the peninsula.
Yeah.
And they're talking about big stuff.
Right.
Well, the Marine Corps does not have big stuff by design. And so not only was I the junior officer, I was the youngest junior officer, or the youngest looking, but how am I supposed to compete with people talking about B-52s and stealth bombers and carrier strike groups? I mean, this is so.
You're the minor player in the room. is what
Way
you're saying?
minor, yeah. I mean, it was a cold glass of water in my face.
Right.
Okay, the world is a lot bigger than I had realized.
Which is crazy after everything you've been through.
Right.
After everything you learned.
Yeah.
After being around the world multiple times.
Yeah.
There's still things you don't even, you're not even aware of.
Right. So, reaching the top of the mountain, that proverbial top of the mountain, that's a myth. That should never exist. If you think you've ever reached the top of something, you are in danger of failing or not seeing something. So, another thing I would tell people is if you ever think you're on top of your game, I would take a look around and probably reevaluate yourself, because you're probably in danger of not seeing something. So I spent a couple years there in Hawaii, and the airborne wings thing came into play when I put in my application to go to Joint Special Operations Command at Fort Bragg, so JSOC.
Yeah.
And Fort Bragg, now it's called Fort Liberty, but at the time it was Fort Bragg. That's the home of the airborne.
Right.
And I got selected to go, and I check in. And like you said, there's not a lot of Marines with jump wings.
Right.
So I check in, and if you're at Fort Bragg and you were not airborne qualified, you were not even like a human being to them. They looked at you like, oh yeah, they were serious.
Yeah.
You were either airborne or you were not.
Right.
And if you're not, you're
lower than dirt.
You're not even dirt. Yeah, you have to dig to find that person. Yeah,
Right.
So I spent 4 years at JSOC, and I was a major, and I'll tell you, being a major was a lot. That was another shift, because now as a major, as a field grade officer, nobody was really concerned about my ability to do the job. We get it. We know that you do the job.
Right.
But my success hinged on my ability to influence, and if I made a mistake, if I said something wrong, or I was not a team player, as any other grade, somebody would confront me on it. Yeah. As a field grade officer, you rarely ever get confronted. You just won't be invited to the next meeting, or you won't be on the email chain. You won't know what's going on. And so then now you can't inform your team. You won't have influence on behalf of your team. And so your team suffers because of your inability to be in the room.
Right.
So that was a different mental shift. So again, like, I had to shift my mind. The game had changed, and I had to change along with it. And so that was another learning curve. And after my time with JSOC, I knew that I think I'd had enough.
Yeah.
The return on investment to my family, while I could have kept serving, wasn't there.
Yeah.
So I pulled the plug, and I surprised a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people that thought I would have stayed in to get promoted again. And I didn't, and I kind of did it the Dustin Heffel way. I said, "Nope, I'm out. You can have all this.
Right.
I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna take my stripes. So I got to roll out.
Yeah.
I got to get out into the wild." And so we moved it to the Raleigh area in North Carolina, and we love it.
Yeah.
The kids are great. The family is great, and so now my focus, my unit, my battalion is my family.
Right.
It is. Whereas in the military, your family unfortunately has to take a back seat
Right.
sometimes. Now they don't have to take a back seat to anything. I get to decide where I go and what we do.
How many years did you end up doing before you retired?
22.
22.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's
that's
a long time, dude.
Yeah, that's
Very long time.
So that's kind of my story, and I tell you that the biggest blessing in my life was not the Marine Corps. It was the people that I serve with, like the Chad Singers, the Nick Tazzas, like you said, lifelong friends. Like I can't tell you how often I think about how lucky I am to have met you guys and been on that deployment, and so many others. Like to me, like that's really what I'm thankful for. The Marine, the uniform and the ribbons and the rank and all that stuff is great, and I'm it was an honor to serve, 100%. But I don't think about the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
I think about the people in the Marine Corps, and so that's really what was special to me.
I'll tell you what, and I only served a couple years, right? Nothing compared to you guys, but I did do 2 deployments, one including the one we were on. I did a bunch of other, operations and training and moving all over the place and doing stuff. But the only people I stay in touch with are you guys and Hurtado. Really?
Yeah.
You guys are the only guys that I freaking message.
Oh yeah, Hurtado, he's a good dude.
We somehow on that deployment, to me and everything that I did. And if you guys hear noise in the background, that's an actual devil dog.
Oh yeah,
I'm sitting at the table with some devil dogs, right? That's Marines.
Yeah,
that's Nick's devil dog.
She found her ball and she wants to play.
She's ready.
Nick's about to lose his leg.
For some reason, on that deployment, we just bonded. And that was a good time, and happy to be still in contact with you guys and serve with you guys.
Most definitely.
Yeah. But anyway, let's jump over to Nick's story.
Yeah.
I don't know how to follow up that. I mean, man, that was pretty intense.
No,
that was good. That was really
what
good.
What got you joining the Marines?
Oh man, it's nothing as cool as his. Mine's a lot funnier, probably.
Yours is probably less belligerent than mine.
Oh, mine's it's pretty funny. So
Nick, belligerent, but in a different way. More of a low key belligerent.
Yeah.
Well, I was in California. I was in Southern California. Not the best student, I would say.
Perfect candidate for Marines.
Yeah, perfect candidate.
100%.
We talked about this earlier.
That's right.
You know, so
you probably got in trouble too.
I was actually in trouble.
Oh yeah.
At school.
Oh really?
They I don't know what I did, but they had me picking up trash in the quad.
Oh yeah.
On a rainy day, and all of a sudden, 2 Marines come walking up to me, and a gunnery sergeant and a gunnery sergeant Billy, Sergeant Taylor.
Yeah.
And Sergeant Taylor was like, I'm going to go talk to this guy. And Gunnery Sergeant was like, or no, it was opposite. Gunnery Sergeant was like, go talk to him. Sergeant Taylor was like, he's picking up trash. I'm not going to go talk to this kid. He's like, all right, I'll just go talk to him. So he comes talk to me, and he's like, hey, you want to come talk to us? You want to see what we're all about? He's like, and I'm just like entertained. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, he's like, well, when's a good time? I'm like, well, it's raining today. I ain't got shit to do. So how about today? And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
Come on down to the office.
Yeah.
So I drove down to the office after school and just sitting there, and he puts that video in, the VHS shows boot camp, and I was like into fitness. I liked working out in the garage and doing all that stuff. We boxed in the backyard all the time, and we just always did that after school. So I'm watching this little video, and I'm like, and he goes, "Think you could do that?" And I was like, I go, yeah,
right now.
I go, that's easy.
Let's do it.
He's like, so when you want to sign up? And I was like, well, I'm in school. He's like, well, you can still sign up, but you can just go after school. And I was like, let me think about it.
Yeah.
So he chased me down for like 2 weeks. I was working at McDonald's that time. And
we were just talking about McDonald's.
Are you serious, dude? You working at McDonald's?
I worked there for 1 month, and I just stopped showing
China,
up.
Bro.
You
worked for China.
You did.
I stopped showing up one day because I was like, yeah, screw this. And so I remember Sergeant Taylor came into McDonald's with someone on recruiter's assistance.
While you're working?
Yeah, while I was working.
He knew you were there.
Yeah, he knew I was there, and he comes and finds me, and he's like, is this what you want to do? And I was like, no. He's like, so he has this guy, and he's just finished boot camp. He's all motivated. He's talking to me. I'm like, all right. So they try to track down my dad. My dad's like, they finally get a hold of him, and I told my dad, I was like, hey, the recruiter's going to call you. They need your signature. Don't sign anything, okay? I don't really want to go. Next day, I'm in ceramics class, first period. Sergeant Taylor walks in the door. He's like, hey, Nick, come here. What's up? He's like, yeah. so we got your dad's signature, and I'm like, what do you mean?
Signed you
I
away.
sold you out.
My dad signed it. My dad signed it. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, and I go back. And he goes, now we need to get your mom to sign it. I'm like, okay. So I go home. I'm talking about it. I'm like, Dad, I told you not to sign it. He's like, why wouldn't I sign it? I want you out. He's like, because he already basically said, when you're 18, you're out of here. Just go. Yeah. And he was like, I'll let you stay in the house until you go to boot camp now. And I graduated in June, and boot camp was in October.
You got a place to stay.
I had an extra few months. So it took I don't know how it went, but they got my mom's signature, and I go to boot camp. I go down, do all the MEP stuff, and being there right there in Southern California, we just kind of drove down to MEPS in a van.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of us in the local area, all different schools. And we all ended up at the same platoon, actually, which was funny. I still keep in touch with one of those guys.
Yeah.
We go down there, you kind of have your last night out in town. You go into like the clubs and having fun. And to this day, it still cracks me up. I really had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I get on the bus, and you don't show up to San Diego on the regular bus with like a bus full of kids, and you don't have the drill instructor coming in there screaming, "Get off the bus!"
Is it because you're from Southern California?
Yeah, it was just like a handful of us.
Yeah.
And we show up in vans, and I get there, and like in my civilian attire, like none of the buses even showed up yet.
Yeah.
And they walk us to the chow hall, and it's like 6 of us. I'm in like jeans and a t-shirt, and I'm looking at all the stuff, and I'm like, what the hell? And like, what is going on here? And I'm eating, and then you go and you sit in this like little the receiving platoon room. Mm. And then that evening comes around, and that's when all the buses start rolling up, and they're yelling at people, and all of a sudden
so you're in the room. So you're not getting yelled at.
No, that's when they tell you to go out and do those footprints with them. You went
out. Party's over. Get outside.
Yeah, go outside. I'm like,
it's about to go down.
Right.
And even then, I was on the bus. I wasn't getting screamed at. So I'm like in there, and you're just kind of like in line, and there's some yelling going on, but I really wasn't, registering.
Yeah.
So you're getting your bag full of crap, and then you send you to receiving platoon, and receiving drill instructors. They're pretty relaxed. I think that's intentionally. You would probably know. They don't want to scare you too much, And we do that for our few days. And I remember BSing with the drill instructors. And we're like doing push-ups and stuff. And I was like, this isn't too bad.
You're joking with them.
Yeah.
You're
we're
hanging
like,
out with
them.
I'll do
I'm
these
like,
push-ups.
this isn't too bad.
Well, it's San Diego.
I don't remember that.
This is before Dustin was there.
That might have been another San Diego. I don't remember that
This is
happening.
before you got there. But and then you go to your real platoon. We were sitting in there. And I remember we're all kind of like sitting,
Are you in like your bunk area?
They put us in our real, squad bay.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, and you got the commanding officer come in, and he kind of says, "We're going to introduce your drill instructors." They do a little oath. They walk in there, and then he takes off, and they just start barking at you.
Oh yeah.
And that's when it hit, and I went, "Oh shit!
Yeah.
What the hell did I just freaking do?"
Yeah, that's right.
I had no idea. I just remember running around, going, "What the hell?" And I just standing there.
What Nick doesn't know is when they march the platoons in, there's a window from where the drill instructor's duty hut is that you can see the squad bay. Well, there's a window shade, and so we would watch as they're marching. They bring the recruits in, the receiving drill instructors, and we're picking out who's first.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I'm
like I'm watching him. I'm like, okay, that one right there, 4 racks down.
Yeah.
He is public enemy number 1. As
Right.
soon as this goes live, that's who I'm going after. So we're picking him out.
Who looks like a smart ass?
Yep.
Yeah.
I usually pick the biggest one.
Guy.
I usually pick the biggest one, the biggest, tallest ones, because if you can make them go down, the rest of the platoon would be like, okay, you know what? This dude is out of his mind.
No, I was a little guy. I was like, 5'6",
Oh, yeah, you're fine.
140 pounds.
Yeah.
I was just like,
He's blending
but
in.
I
right.
blended in.
Yeah.
But so that was when it hit me. I was like, what did I get myself into? And I was like, holy shit. Long story short, went through boot camp. I wasn't like the top of the recruits, was the bottom recruits. I always got confused with there were like 3 guys. They all kind of looked like me. And I would get, sent to the quarterdeck because he'd be yelling at Baker.
Yeah.
But he would think it's me, and I'd be like, fuck, here I go again. I've been out on that quarterdeck doing shit.
Yeah, so Baker, if you're hearing this, you're still on the list, man.
I never forgot that.
We need to have a talk.
And I used to say that he'd be like, I'd be like, I don't know, man, sorry. But no, I had a great time at boot camp, and then right after that,
When you graduated boot camp, what was your rank right out of there?
Private,
yeah.
Yeah,
So where'd they send you next?
I went straight to Okinawa.
Okay.
Yeah, straight to Okinawa. I was there in April of '99.
How'd you pick your MOS?
Yeah, I was colorblind. I wanted to do like crash, fire, rescue. I wanted to do like some cool stuff, and they were like, basically, my recruiter was like, "Well, you can't do any of this. You can't do that." He's like, "Logistics," and I was like, I remember sitting there like before you actually go your graduation day at boot camp, you kind of the drill instructor sitting there and you could ask him questions, and it was like, if you guys got questions on your MOS, and I was like,
you kind of just stumbled your way into this.
I got logistics, and he's like, he looks at me, he goes, "Well, you guys just make sure people get their shit." And I was like, okay, and I still don't know because there was still like 3 or 4 different routes you could go. You could go to like air delivery. You could be like an 81, 31. You could be like a MIMS guy. And I still didn't know which one I got. Yeah. I mean, I think I lucked out getting the 0431 embarkation. But that's here or there. But I went to Okinawa, and I was there, and everyone's looking at me like, it's Okinawa.
Yeah.
If you don't have rank, everyone thinks you got in trouble because everyone's getting in trouble out there. Really? So everyone's like,
"Oh, Liberty incidents out there."
Yeah. Like, what'd you do? And I'm like, level. Nothing. I just, I'm just a boot. I just got here, and so, and I got to my unit. We were on Fatima at first, and then we were moving actually to Foster, and my warrant officer came in, and I still keep in touch with him to this day. My very first warrant officer. He promoted me to private PFC like 2 weeks later because I had rated it, but I was like, after you finish your school and go to Okinawa, they give you all this extra leave to go on.
Yeah.
Not really to give you just go in the hole basically. Like you're not going anywhere for like 2 years. So you're
like ever.
Yeah.
You're never going anywhere.
So I got promoted. Meritoriously to Lance Corporal from that move, and we were on the Foster 172. Chief Officer Pay was him. He ended up moving to Group 17 up the street. Took me with him. It's not that I was... when I was at Okinawa, like, back then, this was, before they had, like, the curfew and all that stuff. You could pretty much get away with anything out there.
Yeah.
And unless you did something to get caught... You really, there's no phones back then. There was no evidence.
There was no internet. There was no Instagram.
No
none of that. There was no archival evidence.
Yeah, you can't get in trouble. So the company gunny, Gunnery Sergeant Smith, he knew me, and he was a recruiter, which actually out of my station that I got recruited out of, he had left, and Gunnery Sergeant Belly took his place. So when he found out I was from that recruiting station, and those were my recruiters, and he was like... He would always give me a hard time, and I always had like long hair, kind of like I have now. And he was like, "Oh, you'd be the perfect recruiter, Tarza." And I'm like, "It's Tazza." And he's like, "Yeah, that's what I said, Tarza." All right,
So
but he always knew I was up to something. Yeah, he always knew I was up to something, and he was always like trying to get me. He got me non-ranked one time because there was a typhoon. You weren't allowed out in town during typhoons. And I was like, "Oh, why can't I go out in town on a typhoon?" So me and my roommate, we go out in town and we would just like roll on. We would sign the chow hall log that we were there. Then we'd go back out.
Yeah.
And then he would do like surprise inspections. So he came in and he was like,
"Where's always Tarza? Where's Tarza?"
Yep. So I got a phone call like, "Hey, they're looking for you." So I hurried up, got on base, went straight to the chow hall, signed my name, and showed up and like, "Where were you at?" I was like, "I was at the jail hall, Gunny. What are you talking about?" It's like they investigated. They saw I signed in there, and I was like, it got non-ranked. And that's when Chief Bullets. Yeah, that's when Chief Officer Pay was like, "We're getting you out of there. Come on up here with me, because I know
he's not even a year in the Corps. He's doing criminal operations already. It's ridiculous."
I was always a libo risk in the Marine Corps. That is for sure.
Tarza is the reason the rest of the unit got punished. What's this kind of stuff?
How long were you in Okinawa for overall?
So throughout my entire career, 12 years.
Okay,
I was out there.
You were there for that original stint.
Yeah, I did that original stint, met my wife, we got married, and then it was like I was trying to actually get orders, Master Gunner Sergeant Bellavance. I was trying to get orders to Germany.
If you would have known.
If you would have just walked into his desk and just showed up and just told him what you wanted.
I had the chief officer. I had my gunny. Everybody was like trying to get me these orders. To Germany, and it was going to be 3 years of company with my wife.
Man, you just needed a Sergeant Heffel to advocate for you. You'd have got Germany orders.
Well, what they said. So I came in.
Libo risk.
That's right.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
They knew something was going to happen.
Right.
Well, since I came in the Marine Corps in October, I couldn't relist until that fiscal year. They wouldn't give me those orders yet
until you were re-enlisted.
Until I was re-enlisted, and those orders were coming up in like August.
Oh my gosh!
And so that was the reason I had to go. Yeah, they got me.
So where'd you end up going?
Well, I had just got married, and it was at that point I was like, you know what? Well, how about instead of me just going to the States and kind of throwing my wife in the States and not knowing anybody and where we're at, I just opted to stay there. So I did an additional 3 years. They sent me to 3rd TSB, which was on Foster, which I had a great time. Still got some good buddies that I keep in touch with from there. One actually lives 45 minutes up the road here.
Nice.
He was a master sergeant. Still haven't met up with him. We always chat on the text. And
He's
it's like
45 minutes away. Dude.
I know. It's like you're 45 minutes.
Dude, Chad and I drove like 3 hours, man. Like
I know.
Yeah.
You can't drive 45
minutes?
I know.
Yeah, if you're listening, you're in trouble. Yeah.
So we always talk about we need to link up. But I worked for him, and then from there, I went to Marfor Com out of actually at the time it was Marfor Land, Norfolk, Virginia.
Oh wow!
Changed to Marfor Com while I was there.
Coast.
Oh yeah,
you went halfway around the world.
And that was kind of like
Marines.
That was a hookup too.
No, don't look at me. I was never.
I'm talking about him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was. Yeah.
I was not an East Coast guy. I didn't want to go to the East Coast, but luckily, so Norfolk, Virginia. It was only about 3-4 hours away from Baltimore, Maryland, and that was where my mom, my stepdad, and my brothers were at.
Well, real quick to pause your story, at least in the Navy, for the listener, in the Navy, West Coast Navy, East Coast Navy, they say that the West Coast Navy is more relaxed, East Coast Navy is more strict. Is that the same for the Marines, or is it just the same across the board?
I would say there's an East Coast, West Coast, overseas Okinawa Marine Corps.
Yeah.
There's 3 different.
Okinawa is the most relaxed.
No.
No. Oh, really?
No, Okinawa is the most Wild West Marine Corps. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You make things happen out there.
Oh,
yeah.
So mostly in the States, you train to deploy. In Okinawa, you deploy to train because you have to leave the island to go do stuff. And and there's units constantly getting rotated out there. So it's never really the same people or same person. So like Nick said, it's kind of like, hey, make it happen.
Right.
If we have to, be inside the gray area,
right.
Well, then that's what nighttime is for.
Probably why I was so successful in my career because I spent so much time because you're always going out there and you're always getting that experience and there's a lot of gray area where you can get away with things.
Right.
Everything's gray.
Right.
So
everything's gray.
I mean, and I'm not the smartest guy. I'm a knuckle dragger, so I didn't like being in the office. I didn't want to do that stuff. Yeah. So I was always trying to be out and about.
Boots on the ground.
And being in Okinawa, you were always going, not really deployment, but you had exercises.
Right.
Constantly.
Right.
So
you're in Norfolk now.
I flourished, yeah.
You're in Norfolk. West Coast, East Coast Marines are basically the same, is what you're saying. There's no relaxed, not relaxed.
There's a little bit of difference, I would say. I would say West Coast is probably a little bit more laid back. Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah,
or at least they used to be.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, though, Nick and I's Marine Corps is not the Marine Corps of today. Like, I tell people this most of the time. The Marine Corps that Nick and I came up in and retired from when we came in to when we retired, the Marine Corps had changed a lot.
Yeah.
For like when him and I came in, if you were underage in the barracks drinking beer, as long as you weren't leaving or causing a problem, nobody really cared.
Yeah.
Right? If you're in the barracks, you're doing your thing and you're being cool.
And nowadays, you're done.
Oh, if you have it in your room, you're done.
Yeah, you're done.
Don't even drink it. You have it in your room, you're done.
Got these phones and they just they videotape everything.
Yeah.
They get themselves in trouble.
Right.
Yeah. So different Marine Corps.
So you're in Norfolk.
Norfolk, yeah.
So what are you doing there?
I was supposed to work in the G4 doing some secret squirrel stuff, but I had to get my security clearance. So while I was waiting for that, they threw me over to
get it, or did you?
Yeah, I'd love to hear this part. I did get it eventually.
Oh, they were asleep at the wheel. They obviously didn't go to Okinawa.
Yeah, I was under the radar a lot. They threw me over to the company office, and I was a training chief. And that's what I did. And I was coming up right at my 8 years, so I was about to get out of the Marine Corps at the time.
Really?
And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to try something else out.
At this point, how long had you been in total?
I was coming up on 8 years.
8 years?
Yeah, I wanted to get out. I wanted to be a cop. You know, I figured I knew enough shady stuff. I could be a pretty good cop to catch them.
What?
I was like, all right, I know how that criminal level works.
Lord.
So, you know, at that time they had TAPS and TAMs. I forget what they call it now. But that
transition assistance.
Transition assistance, yeah. So it's a transition. I go there and I was like, man, basically that transition assistance was something to like basically say, if you don't have a college degree or have a real plan, you're going to fail and you're not going to support your family.
Re-enlist.
Yeah.
Re-enlist.
So our contract.
Right.
Yeah. I have a wife. I got 2 kids at the time. And I'm like, yeah, well, I just can't like get out and not have a job. The sheriff thing may or may not work out. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll re-enlist. So I went back. That day, I actually was on the line and I pulled up the MAR admins and boom, there was this warrant officer message there. And I knew what warrant officers were because I've had a lot of them in my career path.
What was your rank at this point?
I was a staff sergeant at this point. Yeah.
Oh, so got there pretty quick.
So yeah, I got that right at 7.5 years.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, if I'm gonna re-enlist, I might as well try to make as much money as I can.
That's right.
And if I'm gonna do this for longer, so once you hit past that 8-year mark, you know, next one's 12. I was like, well, shit, I only got 8 more. At that point, I was like, I'm gonna be a careerist.
Right.
So I look and I'm reading and I'm like, well, hell, I meet all that criteria. Screw it, I'm gonna submit my package.
Yeah.
So I put this nice package there. I was always pretty good at that paperwork, and like I'm talking to these other guys, and they're like, "It's your first time. You're never gonna. Nobody gets accepted the first time." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna put it in anyway. I mean, if anything, the only thing that's gonna tell me is what I need to improve for the next time." Put the package in. At a couple months later, came back. I was selected. At the same time, my security clearance was approved.
You got warrant officer before your security.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Again, sleep at the wheel.
It came back approved. I was everything, and like at that point, I talked to the first sergeant and sergeant major. I was like, it's like I'm going to warrant officer school in like 3 months. I was like, I mean, I could go to the G4 if you want, but I already got shit settled down here. I know how I could do the good turnover, everything, keep things moving. So I just stayed there in the training office. I went to warrant officer school. Once I graduated warrant officer school, I tried to stay in Norfolk. I wanted to go be a CCO. One of my good buddies, Jamie Weathers, was at warrant officer school with me.
I love Jamie. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
CCO for the listener is combat cargo officer. Is that is the only CCO for ships and fibrons essentially, or are there other CCO?
Amphibs, yeah. All the amphib ships.
So if you're a CCO combat cargo officer, you're working for or with or on an amphibious ship or squadron.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So that's what you wanted.
That's what I wanted. I was like, I'm in Norfolk.
Yeah.
I mean, like, my
Amphibs
family's
everywhere.
here. There's
Might as
amphibs.
well just walk down the street and check in.
So they asked me, where do you want to go? And I was like, well, I'd like to stay here. Jamie Weathers, he was, I forget where he was at, but he ended up getting the combat cargo officer job. I forget what ship he was on. And so I helped him move out, got him settled. And then I went back to Okinawa.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I was like, well, if I can't stay where I'm at on the East Coast, send me to Okinawa. Went out there, went to MHG, which is Marine Headquarters Group. They're like right below the 3MEF. And I worked there, got to go on a few deployments, exercises with them. While I was there, because at this point in my career, I had not yet gone to Afghanistan, Iraq. While I was in the training office, actually at MAR 4Com, I put in a request, and I was going to go fill a MIMS clerk in Afghanistan at the time. At that time, Iraq was kind of drawn down, and Afghanistan was where it was at. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to try to go to Afghanistan. Or I'm sorry, vice versa.
Right.
So I was like, I want to go to Afghanistan before nobody's out there. So they were like, yeah, it's MIMS clerk, it's for a staff sergeant. Yeah, you can go out there. got the warrant officer, so that didn't happen. So when I went out there as MHG, I was like, I really want to like get out and do something. I mean, I got all this experience. I want to go out and do something.
Got to take your stripes and roll out.
That's right. That's right. But you had been on a bunch of exercises from Okinawa.
Yeah, lots of exercises from Okinawa. I mean, Cobra Golds, Balgatans.
Operations, things like
Fuji's.
that.
Yeah. So I got a lot of experience. So I kind of went around my, not intentionally, but I worked with G4 a lot. I mean, I was down there at 3MEF G4 all the time. Really got to know those, LDO, lieutenant colonels in my field.
Mick's pulling the strings now.
Yeah, I was starting pulling strings. So I kind of caught word that there was a 0430 billet, which was my MOS, out there in Kuwait at the time. And I was like,
Nick always has the inside scoop, man. I don't know how he does it.
He
does. I never got that. I was never able to do that, but he's always somehow knows the inside baseball.
Well, that's why you got to know him.
That's right.
So you can get his strings.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
So I kind of was like, hey, I could go do that, and they're like, oh no, we're not sending you. Like you deploy the MEF. We need you where you're at, and I'm like, you guys can. I mean, really, come on.
Right. He's talking.
And so I'm going up there, and I went up and I talked to my boss and the CO, and I was like, hey, there's this billet down there and going out to Kuwait. I'd like to go out and do it. And they're like, absolutely not. You're not doing that. They're
classic.
You are not going unless we get a backfill.
Now what's your question?
Yeah, they're like, you're not going unless you get a backfill.
Right.
And I'm like, fuck, all right. So I go back down to MEF. I'm like, listen, CO said I could go as long as you guys backfill me. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, they just want someone to be up there for like the 9 months while I'm gone. And they're like, how can we make this work? And so next thing I know, got freaking TAD orders up to backfill me. And I got my orders to Kuwait, and I was like, yes, all right. I had a great time. I got, it seems like all the good friends I ever met were usually on these deployments. So I still keep in good touch with a couple of those guys from that deployment.
How long were you there for?
I was out there for 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were in Arifjan is where we were at. So it was a pretty, we didn't really leave the wire. It was Kuwait anyway. Every once in a while, like if we got to leave base, it was to go drop a Marine off at the Kuwait International Airport. Again, pulling that, I guess the warrant officer, I don't know what you would call it, but I got to go out here and take him to the airport. We need 2 of the vans, and I bring like the whole shop, and we would go to like the Hard Rock Cafe, Kuwait,
nice.
Non-alcoholic. Everything was non-alcoholic out there, but we go do like little farewell. Got dinner with them.
Then you hurry up and get back to base and sign in at the chow hall.
That's right. Yeah. Sign in the chow hall. That's exactly where we went. Yeah, 100%.
We got away with that for
100%.
like 3 or 4 times, and then someone caught on, and I'm like, "What have y'all been doing?" And we're like, "Oh," and I was like,
"I smell a snitch."
Yeah.
I smell a rat. There's a rat somewhere. That's right.
So that we had to stop doing that. But while I was out there, I got to meet Lieutenant Colonel Ellis. I don't know if you ever got a chance to meet him. He was a great guy. It was Captain Parkin at the time. He was another great guy. He was actually one of my bosses as a young Lance Corporal and Corporal. So got to see him out there. Some good mentorship for that. Then I came back. I was in Okinawa, and then what year was this? I think from there I got deployed to 11th MEU. Kept my wife and kids in Okinawa at the time because my orders came up. I'm like, all right, you're going to go to the 11th MEU.
Was that in San Diego?
It was in San Diego. And they're like, oh, by the way, as soon as you get there, you're deploying for a SALPAC. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, well, I was able to work it out to where I could keep my family there, everything. While I went out there.
That was on an ARG?
Yeah, I was on the New Orleans at the time. It was a CCO. I finally got my CCO orders.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was a combat cargo officer for New Orleans. Get there, and within 2 weeks, we were underway going down to South Pac. This was right when the big earthquake from Chile happened.
Yeah.
So that was supposed to be one of our stops along our way, and that got canceled.
Oh, New Orleans was part of our ARG.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that a 11th MEU deployment? Was that a 3-ship ARG, or was it just
That
New
was
Orleans?
a single ship.
Just the New Orleans?
Yeah, we just went down there to
Y'all
do
took
the
2
South
LCACs with you, or what'd you have?
We had,
You remember? LCU?
I think we had an LCU at the time.
Really?
Yeah, we had one
That's
LCU.
surprising.
That is surprising.
What year was that? Do you remember?
That was 2012.
I mean,
No.
LCACs were coming around then. They were big.
They might have.
They were
They
phasing
might have
out
took the
LCU.
LCU
No, I think
because
it was 2000.
I don't think-
Earthquakes and shit, and it's hard to get an LCAC on the beaches there, maybe.
I'm
yeah,
sorry, that
but
was
also hard to fix on
2010.
an LPD.
Oh yeah,
That was 2010.
because you can't take the whole detachment anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean that was really my first time. I mean, I really interacting. I rode an LCU. I've been on ship before, but it was just a passenger from Korea back to Okinawa,
Right.
and I really didn't have anything to do with that. But so that was my first time really acting around it, and it was good. I think it was a great experience doing that little mini deployment. You know, it was 3 months. You know, it was kind of cool.
So you're doing humanitarian aid to Chile.
No,
Chile,
no,
right?
it
Oh,
got
no.
it got canceled
Oh, okay.
completely. We went to like Colombia, Mexico, Peru.
Sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We did training with the militaries down
Okay.
there. But
Well, for the listener, real quick, the USS New Orleans is a LPD. It's an amphibious ship in the Navy, which means that it can basically submerge itself a little bit into the water and bring watercraft into the ship from the back of the ship. It also has a large flight deck. It can land helicopters and things on the flight deck. So we're throwing around some terms here. So LCAC is basically a hovercraft.
Yep.
It's a Navy vessel, but it goes inside of these amphibious ships, and it can move Marines from the ship to a beach somewhere, to a shore. An LCU is like your old school, landing craft. It can go into the ships as well. But if you think about like Saving Private Ryan, World War II, where they got these vessels with these ramps that fall off the front, people are running off the front. That's what an LCU basically is,
Yeah.
just an upgraded version of that.
Yeah.
So that's what Nick is dealing with. He's dealing with, as the combat cargo, he's dealing with moving Marines around, logistics. He's kind of the in-between for Marines that are embarked on the ship with them for their deployment and the ship's company, which is the guys that are running the ship.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Is that a good explanation?
Perfect.
So that's what you did on that deployment. Then where'd you go after that?
Came back and got my family back from Okinawa, and about 4 or 5 months later, we started workups with the 11th MEU. It was pretty quick, and then we did the 11th MEU. When I finished the 11th MEU,
And so you were at the MEU at that point as the logistics, or where were you at technically? Were you
I was still
CCO, combat cargo?
Yeah, I was still combat
New
cargo.
Orleans? Yeah.
And we deployed with the 11th MEU, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we did that. And during that deployment, my daughter was born, my youngest daughter.
Did you fly home for that, or you were gone?
No, I was gone. Yeah, I was gone. I came back. She was 3 months old.
You're back. Your wife.
I was one of the.
She
what
was
is-
used to it by that point.
Yeah, she was used to me being gone. So when you come back, as we all know, you get the new dads and all that. You get the rows, everything. They pull the lottery to see who gets to get off the ship. So I was one of the first Marines to get off the ship, which was kind of cool. But that was when I actually got a. So when we did the South Pac, I really didn't have a combat cargo platoon. I had one, but it was very small. It was like eight folks because it was just a single ship. But when we did the deployment with the MEU, I had like my full combat cargo platoon. So I had a master sergeant and a gunnery sergeant, and then we had 30 Marines.
Yeah.
Um,
That was
met-
the West Pac. That was the
yeah, I
West
was
Pac?
on the West Pac. Met some really good guys. One of them I'm working with at my current job right now.
Nice. Again, Nick's got these strings, dude.
Yeah.
All over the world.
Yeah,
brother.
I mean that's
All
a
over the
theme
world.
here. Yep.
Keep it. Yeah, it's all about networking.
That's right.
And a few of those Marines from the combat cargo platoon, I still keep in touch with. I'm always texting back and forth with them on Instagram or Facebook. So we do keep in touch. Came back from that deployment, and then where did we go from there? I think we got orders right back out to Okinawa, and this time I went to 3MEF. So where I was at the headquarters group before, now I was actually in the G4 office. So where I was pulling those strings to get out to Kuwait, I actually was now that person who
Yeah.
was.
You're in the head shed.
Yeah, I was in the
You're
head shed now with those guys.
Wait, so what year was this?
When I went back out to Okinawa was 2012.
Yeah, so 2012, I got to my ship as a CCO up in Sasebo, Japan. And so I remember hearing Tazza's name at the MEF. Tazza, Captain Tazza. Yeah, and they said, because the ships in Japan, they support the 31st MEU, or the 31st
Was that the
MEU.
Green Bay?
I was on the Denver.
Denver? That's right.
Yeah. It was the oldest active ship in the Navy at the time, except for the Constitution. Just saying.
Yeah.
Tarza's name was thrown around to take the MEU, and I didn't know. I was like, that's great, whatever. It doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Yeah, they were one of me. It was either me or Young.
So you guys were out there same time.
Yeah. Still didn't know
but
each
you
other
didn't know
at
each
that
other.
time. No.
Yeah.
You might have seen each other on some emails.
I had gone to Okinawa as my first warrant officer assignment, and then in 2012 they deactivated. So Nick was at Group 17.
Yeah, we just found
and
this
I was
out.
there, but they were deactivating the unit, and they asked me where I wanted to go, and I was like, the role for the warrant officer as a new mobility officer, you go to your first command, and then you should want to be a combat cargo officer. Well, that's what I picked. I was like, hey, combat cargo. Matter of fact, I want the biggest, baddest amphib in the fleet.
Right.
That's how I roll.
Right, exactly.
Right. Whatever's the most painful duty, give me that. And
Yeah.
they were like, well, they're going to put me on the Boxer in San Diego. And when they sent me to Korea, this is how the Marine Corps rolls. This is for the listener. This is exactly. If you ever think about joining the Marine Corps, this is how they do you.
Yeah.
They sent me to Korea for an exercise, and while I was in Korea, I get orders to the USS Denver in Sasebo, Japan. I was like, wait a minute, that's not the Boxer, and that's not San Diego.
They told you one thing, they flipped it.
That's right. So it was an involuntary consecutive overseas tour. So
Some colonel sounds like, man, he'd be a great guy.
Let's
get him over there.
That's
we need
right.
him.
Yeah.
He makes shit happen.
So I remember his name at the MEF in 12 when I got to my ship.
Well, at that time, I was the surface officer at the mill. So as a surface officer, you're dealing with all the ships, you're dealing with the MEU, and you're doing all that stuff. So,
and you were an LDO at this point. You had moved from warrant to
Yeah.
LDO, so you're a captain now.
yeah, actually during the 11th MEU, which I skipped over that part. So I was Chief Officer 3, and I got my 30 man cargo combat cargo, and we're like, I told Matt I was getting promoted. I put in my package in, got selected.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, Master, I'm gonna get promoted. Have the Marines up topside. We're gonna do the promotion. So everyone's out there and they're like, what the fuck's going on? Nobody knows. So there I am, and I go over and I get promoted to captain, and you got all these junior Marines, and they're just like, what did I just witness? I just saw him go.
Happened?
He was a Chief Officer 3, and now he's a captain, and they came up and what happened? How does that happen? So it was a good.
It's got to be stolen valor.
It's got to be stolen valor. It was a good
going on.
It was a good learning experience and mentorship time for me. Explain them the different things you could do in the Marine Corps and how you go about doing those.
Dude.
So a lot of them were able to take from that experience. It was just funny.
Because that's probably one of the best programs.
Yeah.
Well, they call it Seaman to Admiral in the Navy.
I told him, I was like, I started out just as you. I told him, I was like, I was a private. I get to the flight, I was a private. I'm a captain. And this is how I did it, and this is what you could do to do that. And because as a combat cargo platoon, you have all different types of MOSs. You got a lot of grunts, but you have different guys. MOT, you got all kinds of folks in there. So I don't know if grunts really have. Yeah, they got the gunner program. So they don't have LDO programs.
Yeah.
But I was just able to explain the different routes you could go throughout their career, and that you don't have to go to college and get a degree and do all this stuff. You could do this,
Yeah, screw college.
Yeah.
Do this.
College is a scam, man.
So how'd you end up at 13th MEU? So you were out there.
Well, when I was out as a surface officer again, we got to see the orders coming up to these different spots.
And, because you were on the inside.
Yeah, I was on the inside and saw some stuff coming up for
always
Afghanistan.
the inside scoop, man. How?
I saw some stuff coming up for Afghanistan, and again, I had never really got to go do anything super cool like that. And I was like, talk to the boss. I was like, hey, can I go do this? And they didn't want to let me go.
Of course not.
No, luckily at that time we had just got a civilian contractor, Master Gunnery Sergeant Rudolph.
Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy.
Oh yeah, I know.
So, they were able to kind of let me go because there was a kind of a backfill there. So I was able to go. I got to go to Afghanistan, and then when I came back, I became the MPF officer. So, pre-positioning force,
which was a new thing at the time.
Right? No, not
or it's been around
really.
for a while, but they were starting to pick it up.
Yeah, and in Okinawa, you're constantly using those pre-positioning ships. for all the extra.
MPF for the listener is, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a while since I've been read up on this stuff, but if I'm not mistaken, it's civilian ships or USNS ships that they position around the world with assets for use.
Yeah, maritime pre-positioning force.
Right? Yeah,
and they're filled like these huge, like these ships that you look and you just think they're, you know, oil tankers out there.
Yep.
They're just decks and decks of tanks and tons of equipment.
Right. They got shit ready to go.
All over the place.
All over the place. So I became the MPF officer when I came back. So I got to do that for about a year and a half, going out to Guam and going on the different exercises, offloading those ships for all these, you know, Corporal Golds and Balgatans that are happening in the Philippines and Thailand. It's where I met one of our good friends, Nick Farmer.
Oh my
during
God.
deployment like that.
I love Nick. He's awesome.
Great guy.
Farmer is a beast.
So I got to do that. Great experience again. Ship loading seemed to be like just like what I was like. It was my element at that point. I really felt comfortable
putting the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, doing the combat cargo,
fitting everything into a tight space.
Exactly.
You know.
And then once I got left there, again, got orders. That's when I got my orders to 13th MEU. This was 15, and again, basically it was.
Oh, so you showed up in 15 too?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Dude, we all got thrown in right before.
Right in the deep end.
Right. We started workups I think that summer, and I got there like the week before the 4th of July, and then we went. What's that training you got to do right before you go to having a blank.
Oh, you talking about at the EWTG? Is that
Yeah.
That's when I showed up during that training.
Yeah,
they threw me into that.
I had shown up and I was straight there.
Yeah.
And I knew that was what happening. So again, I was able to. I worked it out to where my family stayed in Okinawa, and I was just going to bring them back after the deployment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For the listener too, real quick. When we're all three of us are kind of getting to the same place at this point in time in our paths, and basically we were all on the staff. Me and Dustin were on the Amphibious Squadron staff, which is technically the Navy side. Nick here is on the technical MEU staff, Marine Expeditionary Unit staff. And so as these staffs start to come together for deployment, we start training together, and our first training is we go over to Coronado, and we're running through expeditionary warfare training, trying to figure out Navy and Marine Corps working together, doing all this planning shit, because as a staff, you're planning everything.
Yeah.
Planning everything and things that could happen, things that couldn't happen. So this is where all three of us are kind of now coming into play for this 13th MEU deployment that we've kind of alluded to this point.
Exactly.
So that's where you show up.
That's where I showed up. Kept the family there. And also, I won't talk too much about the 13th MEU because I know we want to talk about that next. But then right after the 13th MEU, I went to first MLG. This was supposed to be my twilight tour. And when I first checked in, you know, my colonel goes, "Hey, Nick," he goes, "Do you I see you got a year left. You're getting out. You're already retirement's approved." I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Is there any medical issues you need to take care of?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I got to get my shoulder surgery done. I got this going on." He's like, "Well, listen," he's like, "you came to the perfect unit because, I mean, take care of yourself. It's your final year." Like, he's like, "I got a master guns. Like, we got 2 master sergeants." He's like, "Just really," he's like, "you can't like not be here, but really focus on yourself and just make sure the ball's rolling."
That sounds like a trap.
I go,
Just saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm
I
saying.
go like a trap.
I go, "Well,
That's
thanks,
what
sir.
I'm
I
saying.
really appreciate that." Well, 2 weeks later, he was gone. We got a new colonel in.
Called it.
And it was, one of the hardest years of my Marine Corps, trying to transition out and trying to deal with a colonel who really was just micromanaging everything.
Were you a major now?
I was a major at this time.
You retired as a lieutenant colonel though, right?
No, I retired as a
As
major.
okay.
Yeah, no.
So you got this guy, dude, micromanager, bro.
Yeah, and so
Is he trying to get a star or something?
100% he
Yeah,
was. You know he
100%.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I already know.
Yeah.
I'm saying that for the listener.
That's
Well,
right, yeah.
we had the master guns. We had the 2 master sergeants and me. Master guns dropped his papers. Master sergeant dropped his papers, and I already had my papers. So it was really all 3 of us at the exact same time just dropping. And then to make things even worse, the lieutenant girl on the 0430 side was like, hey, we're going to give you some help. We're going to give you a chief warrant officer to help you out up there. Basically gave me more work to do.
Right.
It was not a good transition at all. Luckily, I was able to still get my surgery done. And during that time frame, that was right before I was about to, actually get out. We were able to get a good friend of ours, Tony Gregory, in, and he was my replacement at MLG. So he came in while I was on my, convalescent leave and all that stuff, getting my surgery. And he kind of took the reins. And when I came back, and there really was, he was like, I got it, man. He's like, so I was like, all right. So those last really 2 months, I was really kind of able to go to taps and tams and all that stuff and try to get out of there. And then I retired. It was a major. I just, at that point, kind of like Dustin said, I was like, 20 years. I knew at that point, I was, like I said earlier, I'm a knuckle dragger. I like getting my hands dirty. As a major, I didn't get to do any of that stuff. I knew if I stuck around, I got lieutenant colonel, I was going to get stuck in some, office someplace and really do nothing. And that just wasn't where I knew I wanted to be beneficial to the Marine Corps at that point. I'm a doer, not a writer.
Right.
And
how many years did you do before you
20. 20, and then got out and
good to go.
Luckily, a few of the master guns who retired the month before me from my office, he called me up as I was in my house. He's like, hey, you're up in Ranch Cucamonga, right? And I go, yeah. He's like, hey, there's an MCCS job in Ranch Cucamonga. Call up Master Gun Sergeant Inman. And I go, he's my buddy. Give him a call. I was like, oh, I know him. So I called him up, and because of networking and people I knew in Marine Corps, I was able to get my first job out of the Marine Corps. And I held that. It was a good job, MCCS. I still felt like I was doing things for the Corps because I was making sure all the stuff was going to the PXs out of the distribution warehouse for the West Coast, Japan, Hawaii, pushing things. But once COVID hit, I was just we kind of pushed off, moved out here to North Carolina, and again, luckily, when I came out here from my very first unit at MWSS 172, our S4 officer, he saw that I moved out here and he called me up and was like, do you need a job? And I was like, yeah, actually I do. And I've been working for him ever since, as a federal contractor. So it's been very blessed with getting jobs so far outside of the Marine Corps, again, through connections I made while in the Marine Corps. It's a small world. It really is.
You got your strings, bro.
Yeah,
your strings.
It's my strings.
Always pulling them.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, so we already talked a little. Are we rolling already? Okay, so all right, we talked a little bit already about how me, Nick, and Dustin, we kind of collaborated at 13th MU together. Me and Dustin on the Amphibious Squadron side, staff side, Nick on the 13th MU side. So we go to this training. I don't remember what you guys' first memories of each other are, but me, at least my background, I came from I'm 4 years in. I'm not even 4 years in. I'm like 2.1 years into the Navy.
Yeah, because you were still a lieutenant junior grade at
I was
the time.
a lieutenant junior, 02.
Didn't you replace somebody too?
I replaced somebody.
Yeah, I remember it was a little short ensign.
Chick. Yeah, short chick, and she rotated out. And
is that Rains?
I don't remember her name to be. No, Rains was one of my officers.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
She was an ensign.
She was an ensign. She was an LDO. Rains was, and so which I think she's a lieutenant commander now.
Oh, okay.
But cool. So anyway, I left. I decommissioned a frigate where I was the communications officer, surface warfare officer, boarding officer, all this shit. Right, decommissioned that frigate. And when I was there, I was like, I'm getting off of freaking surface ships. I'm like, I want to do something cool.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, I'm putting in for all these special billets, and they're like, if you want these special billets, you have to get these special qualifications to prove that you should be given these special billets. So I busted my ass on that first deployment, got these special qualifications, whatever, got them done, got the CO to sign off on these special billets. So it was like I had Riverine available, which is where I wanted to go, and then I had this thing called Naval Beach Group available. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but it's anything off of a surface ship. It's something cool. I'll go there, right? So I got picked up for Naval Beach Group. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm getting myself into. I get orders to Coronado, show up at Coronado, and then I start figuring out that Naval Beach Group is this command that has all these landing craft and, Marine Raid Force ribs and everything that we were in charge of. And I was going to be basically the OIC of a detachment of all these landing craft across 3 different warships for a deployment. And I was like, sounds cool, right?
Yeah.
I got no idea what to do.
Yeah.
No
cool.
idea, right?
That's cool.
So they throw me into the fire here. I'm showing up for these trainings. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, because I have 0 amphib experience, period.
Yeah.
0 staff experience, period. Mm-hmm. The highest ranking officer that I had been around was the CO of my previous ship, which was an 05. And I'm in a room with 06s, 05s, 04s, and I'm the only 02 in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be in charge of the landing craft, and I'm like, I got to figure this shit out real quick.
Yeah.
Here's your ship-to-shore plan, sir.
Yep.
And so we show up to this training. I'm figuring this stuff out. And, quick story before that, because there was like 2 or 3 of us basically OICs that worked for our captain at Naval Beach Group.
Mm-hmm.
And
What was his name, by the way?
well, the first one was Captain Flanagan.
That guy.
Yeah, that
I got
guy.
a story about that guy.
That guy.
Yeah.
So I show up, and the first day I show up at Beach Group, they're doing like field day PT training where we're running across this field. We're carrying like M60s across the field and shit, like field training, I'm like, cool. So I show up, and I like working out and shit. So they're like, we're taking off our blouses. Captain Flanagan's out there in his freaking green shorts and his Naval Beach Group brown T-shirt and his captain hat. He's an 06.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, tell that guy to come over here, because I'd never met him before.
Right.
I'm just showing up. I'm carrying these freaking M60s around.
Yeah.
So I run over there. He's like, you look like you're in shape. And I was like, yes, sir. And he's like, what are you here for? And I was like, well, I'm going to be your boxer OIC representative with the Fibron ONE. He's like, okay, come to my office later. I was like, yes, sir. And so I run off, whatever. Go to his office later. And there was an OIC in there before me. She comes out. She's crying, dude. Because this guy was a hard ass. He's complete
Captain Flanagan
hard ass.
was out of control.
He's like
I don't remember. I don't think
he's
I
like
ever met
one
him.
of those old school, doesn't give a shit hard ass dudes, right? And working with him taught me how to deal with those kind of people I deal with now in the civilian world, right? Mm-hmm. So I go into his office. He's talking shit to me. He's trying to break me down. I'm just like, yes, sir, whatever. He realizes it doesn't affect me. So then he just likes me. He's like, oh, you'll do a great job. Blah, 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 blah. Go do whatever you need to do. Call me if you need something. I'm like, yes, sir, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, what's your story, Captain Flanagan?
Yeah, so a couple years prior to that, I came off my ship out of Sasebo, and I checked into Camp Pendleton. And
he was at Beach Group at the time.
He was Beach Group. So this is 2014. I was a Chief Warrant Officer 3, and we were doing the testing of the USNS Montfort Point. That marine landing platform ship was brand new. Mm-hmm. And I just came off CCO duty. So the first MLG was like, hey, you were a CCO. We need a guy to go out there as part of this test and evaluation crew. Mm-hmm. And part of it was they were going to put the LCACs on and off this mobile landing platform. And I was like, okay, I'll go out there.
Yeah.
And I show up, and it's some Beach Group folks and Captain Flanagan. I had no idea who this guy is.
Right.
But like you said,
is he in his shorts and T-shirt?
He's wearing his boots with his shorts with his tucked in Beach Group shirt and this navy ball cap on. And I'm looking at him like, who is this guy?
Who's this clown?
This clown, yeah.
Is he a contractor?
Because he made his own uniform.
This is
dude.
out of control. Okay,
He
whatever.
made his own uniform with those shorts.
Yeah,
bro.
exactly. Yeah, and
those
he
shorts.
starts lighting up one of the sailors from another unit, and I think it was from the LCAC from ACU 5. Yeah, and so he starts lighting into this petty officer, and he's like, "Do you know who I am? I'm your boss's boss." And I'm like, "Dude, fuck this guy. Let's just throw him over now and get this over with." But yeah, so that was my run-in with Captain Flanagan, and then years later when we were deployed, I just kept hearing his name. Mm-hmm. The Beach Group CO. Oh, he's a hard ass, and I'm like, yeah, well, okay, whatever. Yeah. So anyway, that was my story.
Well, from my understanding, when I arrived at the Fibron, starting to work with you, the Fibron. I forgot what you call it. What do you call the Fibron CO?
Commodore,
right?
Yeah.
The Commodore and Captain Flanagan, who's also a Commodore, they butt heads like crazy.
Yeah.
They were not getting along. Mm-mm. So I get inserted into the mess, and I basically just cut those two guys apart.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of the feeder between the two, and I kind of make their relationship work,
Yeah.
But I remember showing up like they just fly, or I don't even know how I got to the ship for one of the freaking pre-deployment underways. But I got there, either they fly me out or I take a LCAC out there or something. But I get out to the ship, the chick that I'm replacing, little short chick, who I think was with you for a little bit, or you guys know her a little bit. She did the
first workup, I think,
Burger.
with this.
Her name was Burger.
That's right.
Oh,
Burger.
that's right.
Burger. Yeah, she was rotating out, right?
That's
so
right.
I show up, and she's like, hey, we got a meeting in 5 minutes. I'm just getting on the ship, and I'm like, cool, whatever. Show up. I have no amphib experience. I don't know what the hell's going on. I walk into the CCO office. She's like, this is Dustin. This is who you're going to be working with. I'm like, who's this guy? Like, what the heck is a CCO? You know, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Dustin's talking shit about people. I'm like, all right, this is how this is going.
That's the norm.
And so we start going to these meetings, and I'm realizing that in these freaking meetings, I'm the freaking lowest dude on the totem pole, but also I'm the only beach group dude, right? And so it's like me, Dustin, and then after a certain point in time.
And neither of us knew what was going on.
Right. Nick's in there, but I don't really know Nick at the time. He's just in there, right? And then a bunch of Marines, you know, people talking, all that, and then they're like, all right, beach group, what do you got? I'm like, I don't fucking know, right? But eventually, like, steep learning curve, obviously, but basically I mastered the craft. You guys are doing your thing. We all start working together. I remember one of the underways, I'm like, also me, I'm like too relaxed, right? Because I leave my my surface warfare ship. I come over to the staff. I realize, like, hey, I'm this OIC. I'm in charge of all this shit. You know, I'm a freaking lieutenant junior grade. So I'm talking to enlisted people because my craft masters, you know, the guys that are driving the hovercraft, they're like chiefs, senior chiefs, master chiefs. So I'm talking to them. Then I'm talking to officers. I'm working with a lot of LDOs. So I just get like too relaxed, right? Typical Navy guy. And so we're in the freaking mess hall one time, and I forget his name, Major, that worked in the S4. Berg, that guy, right? So Berg's coming up. He's asking me a question. He's with some other dude. They're asking me some kind of question about landing crafts, and I'm like, yeah, bro. And he's like, what'd you just say to me? And I was like, I like took a step. Again, I'm still an 02. I'm like, took a step back. I'm like, bro. He's like, you stand at attention, right? And so I have to stand at attention for this guy. He's like, I'm a freaking Marine Corps. I'm an 04. You're an O. He starts chewing me out in front of everybody in the freaking officers mess. I'm like, what the hell's going on? He's like, you need to get a haircut. You need this. You need that. So I'm like, all right. So this guy rolls out, and I go back to Dustin in our office, and I'm like, you'll never believe what just happened, man. And I think Nick was in there because I told Nick the story too, and he's like, yeah, just ignore that guy. You know?
Everybody did.
But that was kind of like, I was like, oh shit, maybe I'm too relaxed with these Marines, because some of the Marines were really relaxed, like Nick.
The majority were. Lieutenant Colonel Doan, he was very relaxed.
Doan was super cool.
He was super cool.
Yeah,
Doan was awesome. I would tell you that
even the colonel, I forgot his name.
Henderson. He's a general now.
He's legit. Is he really?
Oh yeah, he's a 1-star. Maybe he's a 2-star by now.
That dude's legit.
Yeah.
Super relaxed too.
Yep.
Like, he's professional but relaxed. Also big as fuck. Because he'd be in the gym, dude.
Yeah, he was like too relaxed,
shit.
but you knew, like, he was smiling at you, but he had like a smile like he knew he was going to kill you.
Oh, yeah,
or he could kill you at like any minute.
Well, you don't want to push his buttons.
Yeah.
You don't want to, because his freaking uniform could barely contain his biceps.
Bro, he had to cut his sleeves.
He
cut his sleeves because his arms were so big. He cut his cami sleeves so he could roll it up and get it over his howitzer arms. Yeah.
Jack, dude.
He's
Jack
awesome.
guy. Yeah, legit. And then so anyway, what were you going to say?
I remember getting in the Fibron, and remember we talked about Okinawa is kind of like the Wild West. Well, the 31st MEU and the ships out there fell in that same kind of bucket, and so that's where I was. That's where I did my CCO tour.
Right.
Remember when I was enlisted, I was at Force Reconnaissance and MARSOC units, so Special Forces units. So that has its own
element
culture, right? So
right.
I came up in that SF kind of environment, and then when I became a warrant officer, I went out to Okinawa again in this just make it happen. The rules are like guidelines, and the rules don't cover anything we do. So just I'm in the gray like usual, right. So my whole pretty much half of my career had been in the gray, and when I got to the Fibron, now all of a sudden I got a whole bunch of rules being thrown at me, and I was like, I do not have time for this.
Right.
Nobody's got time for this rule stuff, man.
Right.
Like,
we're trying to get shit done.
I'm just getting shit
done.
Yeah, exactly.
Rules,
like,
dude,
they're like, hey, well, you got to do this. You got to sign this paperwork. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing any of that.
They didn't know how to handle you at first.
No, I'm way out. Yeah, again, leave me alone, and I am unpredictable. So, I remember just I didn't know what was going on, just like anybody else. But I didn't know how we were going to win, but I knew we weren't going to lose. And The job for me wasn't the hardest part. It was figuring out the personalities. It was like, okay, who can we afford to ignore, and who really were the shot callers? Like Doan, Lieutenant Colonel Doan was a shot caller. So I knew, okay, that is a guy we could rely on and we could go to.
If you could convince him on something to do, he'd be like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. That's it. That's all you needed.
Right.
You just needed, not like, didn't need a person. You just go spitball with him. Like, this is how I think.
Right.
And it make it happen.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
And the Commodore at the time, I forgot his name, but he was.
Well, there was two of them because remember they changed over.
Yeah,
You're talking about the first one or the second one?
The first one was he was a SWO. So I think he was prior enlisted. So he was longer in the tooth.
Right.
So he saw the world a certain way. That made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
The deputy Commodore who then became the Commodore was an aviator.
Yeah.
So the Fibron, you remember, kind of changed. But then the new deputy, Captain Olin, this guy was a prior chief, and then he became a LDO. Mm-hmm. Then he was an LD, so he was an ensign. Then he made lieutenant. Then he became a SWO.
He was old AF.
And so Nick, I swear,
I don't remember him.
Yeah. So
he was like towards the tail end.
Yeah.
They flew him out.
So Captain Olin was telling us stories about being in the Navy in the early '80s when the battleship New Jersey was still in commissioned, underway with their strike group, and he was talking about.
I was throwing coal in there.
He was telling us the story about being underway with the battleship New Jersey, and they went to Korea for a Liberty thing, and I forgot the story, but it was some kind of joke, and everyone was laughing, and I was the only one in the group not laughing, and everybody they were just laughing their face off, and I was the only Marine in the room, and he was like, Dustin, Captain Heffel, you don't think that's funny? I was like, sir, I'm still trying to get past the battleship New Jersey thing being underway with you. Like, what year was this? 1775? Yeah. Like, the redcoats were coming over the beachhead. Like, I'm still trying to. Anyway, he was. The Fibron definitely takes on the personality of the Commodore, and when you switch between SWO and aviator, and you got to switch again. The game has changed,
right.
And you got to get with it.
Well, me and you were kind of unique because we were working with the ships, the ship captains, the staff captains, the Fibron staff captains, the Marine staff captains, all the Marines.
Yeah.
I know you were doing the same thing.
Yeah, I was doing the same thing. I was
so
like the middleman everywhere.
All these personalities, all these pieces.
Yeah.
Trying to satisfy everybody, or like get the mission done, but try to keep everybody even keel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I will say that for you, when you came on board and you had the beach group, you were really quick about asserting your role about this was my area. This was my stuff. I am the beach group rep, and these detachments are mine. And while yes, we can work together, but this is my stuff. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was great. I really appreciated that because, like I said, we were still trying to figure out like what was going on and who was in what lane.
Right. And
for me, you made that very, very clear and very easy. And so I would say for my relationship with you started off with. I was confident that you knew what you were doing and that you were going to be successful. And so I made sure to kind of overwatch you, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like you were an O2 and and I knew that, okay, there's probably going to be some Marines in there kind of shooting at Chad because, the Marine Corps usually defers to rank.
Mm-hmm. Plus I'm a Navy guy.
Yeah. I at least for me personally, I knew that, okay, I got to have Chad's back no matter what. Like whatever he says, that's the answer. Like, that's gospel, right? Chisel it in stone.
Even if I fucked it up, then later in the room, me and Dustin would be like, I fucked that up.
Well, yeah,
Dustin's
but
like, you're good, you're good.
But publicly, I was like, hey, if that's what he said, if that's what the man said, that's the answer. And then we'd go back and go, Chad, we didn't fix this.
Yeah.
Now.
I'll be honest, I was not aware that was like your first time doing that job.
Well, a lot of people thought I was an LDO for some reason.
Well, we came in and like kind of Dustin said, you kind of took charge of that area, which was great. I mean, and I think we had a great working relationship because we would sit there and work on those low plans and the timelines and everything back and forth, and we'd always bounce them off each other. Mm-hmm. And so I had thought you'd been doing that for a long time. I didn't know until right now that was kind of like you were like, this is my first time doing this stuff. Like, because you picked it up so quick, and we already kind of had a base of like templates and stuff to go off of. So even working with you, the templates we had, and I mean, you were able to say very easily, like, these are high tides, these are low tides, this is the ship to shore time. And so, like, all right, it helped us or me plan those
missions out.
Yeah,
easier.
the missions out a lot easier. And I think every briefing we were in sync with each other. When we were in those conference rooms giving the briefs, you would.
We would brief each other before.
Yeah.
We would link up, all three of us. We would link up, get our plan straight. You would do your brief, I'd do my brief. Everything was in sync.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that helped the staff overall too, because the colonel and then the commodore, they're like, oh, our dudes are good to go. They're in sync. There wasn't like questions being thrown out there.
Yeah,
There
we always
was-
had each other's back in that
Right.
conference room.
That deployment for me, there was zero daylight between you, me, Nick, and Tony, the boxer CCO. You know, we had chow, we had lunch, dinner every day,
Chicken and broccoli.
every
Chicken
single
and
day.
Cookies and those little milk drinks.
Right.
And I thought that was the greatest thing. I mean, and even after that deployment, when I heard from other CCOs, Fibron CCOs, MEU embark officers, I never heard of a relationship like that.
There was never a team in history like
That's
that.
right.
That's for sure.
I'm serious. I had never heard that, and so when I would tell people about our deployment, I'm like, "Look, this is how it happened with us."
Yeah.
People looked at me like I was nuts. They were like, "That doesn't happen."
I was
"Well,
like the black sheep of the 13th MEU because like I didn't even hang out with the 13th MEU guys.
Oh, yeah.
I was like Dustin said, breakfast, lunch, dinner. It was at the table.
Yeah.
You know, Jim was with them.
Right.
Or Tony, you. Like I hardly ever hung out with my unit that I was with, so I was like the black sheep. I'm like,
Yeah.
Nick, what's he doing?
well, you just got to get used to being the black sheep, man. 'Cause
Right.
then you're good."
So we're getting shit done, bro. We're getting
always-
shit done.
I was very
Yeah,
used to
no
being
factor.
that, but I definitely didn't.
Yeah. Oh, you know, it's something I don't think I've ever told you, Chad. When we deployed, I knew early in the deployment. You know, I had been on several deployments before. I knew the tempo. I knew like what was coming up. But I knew awards were going to come up, and I told Hurtado, I was like, "Hey, I need to have awards done no later than midway through this deployment." We had just left. This is like February.
Yeah.
And I'm already talking about ND2
Yeah.
awards, but
Well,
that's
you got
where
the
my
experience.
mind.
You know
That's where
what's
my mind
coming.
is, right?
Yeah, you know what's coming.
So I knew, I was like, okay, I need Chad Singer and I need Hurtado. I need to have Navy comms written up for both of them, right? So I had your guys' awards written up for months, right? Just sitting on my computer. And this is towards the tail end. Captain Olin is the deputy. I had met him like one time, and ironically, he had never been on an amphib ever.
Really?
That was his first
I
time.
didn't know
ever.
that.
Yeah, he was he was a crew
Cruiser
des guy.
destroyer guy.
He was crew des, cruiser destroyer, pointy nose type dude.
Interesting.
Yep. See, he had nothing. He had no idea about amphibs, working with Marines, nothing. So he called me into his office a couple weeks after he gets on board, and he's like,
"What's a CCO?"
"No, I gave him. I worked hard those
kinda
first couple
in-briefed
weeks.
him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
to make a lot of money with it. Anything he needed, boom, I was on it.
Yeah.
Like quick. So he called me into his office and he was like, "Hey, CCO, I need Chad Singer. We needed an ND2 award for him." I'm like, I'm already on it, sir. I got it. And he's like, "It needs to be a Navy comm." And I'm like, "Sir, it's going to be on your desk today." And he's like, "Today?" And I'm like, "In about 15 minutes,
Yeah.
I can have it to you." He's like, "Okay, you have 15 minutes." I'm like, "Okay." I didn't tell him I had already written it like 3 months before.
Holy shit, dude.
So I went back and I printed it off.
Yeah.
And I brought it into his office with a routing sheet. And I was like, "Here you go, sir." And he took a look at it. And he's right there. He was like, "Okay, go give it to N1." That was it. So before that happened, there was the Navy had like a medal quota. Like based on your population, you could only give so many Navy Commendation Medals and so many Navy Achievement Medals. And so there was like a popular. Well, I think the Commodore had said 2. Hey, we're giving out 2 Navy comms in the staff. Well, I had already written 2, Singer and Hurtado. And so when they
Holy
announced,
shit,
"Hey,
dude.
make sure your awards are done," I dropped both on the deputy's desk and just signed them right there. First one. So I took both Navy comms. So they said, "Okay, well, all right, we'll approve those, and now we're going to do 2 Navy comms for everybody else." So because I was so far ahead of everybody,
Nice.
they were like, "Damn, the CCO just sucked up both of our awards that we were going to give out to other people." So
Yeah. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty
good
cool.
to go. Well, definitely a unit like no other, especially in that office. Obviously, Nick was kind of embedded with us, but we also had Hurtado.
Yeah,
Shout out
that's
to
right.
him.
Yeah.
You know, he's out in Hawaii right now.
Yeah.
Doing big things.
Master guns now.
Doing
Yeah,
big things.
He's been
bro.
at Master Guns for a while. He was
Yeah.
in Okinawa, then he was at
Yeah, he went to Okinawa, then he went to Hawaii.
went back. Well, he
Yeah.
was in Hawaii before.
Right, right.
So we we came back from our deployment. I went to Hawaii. He was at Marine Aircraft Group 24 on Hawaii as well. And so I saw him there. And then I went to JSOC, and he went to Okinawa. Now he's back in Hawaii.
Now back in Hawaii.
Yeah, hanging out.
I definitely think
we got shit done, dude.
Yeah.
That was a good deployment. And one story I remember, which I think everything from that time is pretty much declassified, some of the stuff we were doing off the coasts of certain countries, which I won't name the coast, but we had some special units come on board.
Yeah.
And one of the units was a SEAL team. I won't say what team or anything, but Dustin was the welcoming party.
Yeah.
They show up, they're bearded out, they're fucking jacked, right? Yeah. First thing the SEAL team OIC wants to do when he gets on the ship, Dustin's meeting him. He's like, "Where's the gym?" Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Like, and Dustin's like running to show this guy the gym. Yeah. This guy just goes to the gym. He starts throwing plates on bars and smashing weights, dude. Yeah. Justin's like, "Well, I'll come get you later for the rest of your tour."
Yeah, I'll come get you later, sir. Yeah, I remember his name is Rob Robbins.
Yeah.
Commander Robbins, and I remember sitting in the wardroom and somebody came up to me because, as a CCO, I oversaw all the berthing spaces for the officers, for the staff. Well, somebody came up to me and they were like, "Hey, this Navy SEAL commander is going to need a room." And I'm like, "Cool, have him come see me." And he's 2 grades above me in SEAL. Right. But again, remember, I had grown up in the special forces units, so that mentality.
You were already in the culture.
I already knew
the culture. Yeah.
So when he was standing right behind me when they told me that, and so he was like, "Hey, I'm here now," and I'm like, "Great, sir. Check this out. You want to see the gym?"
Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Let's go. So that's why I showed him the gym.
Okay, so you convinced them to go there.
I was like, "I already know you want to see the gym, so let's knock that out quick."
Right.
And while you're doing that, I'll figure out the berthing arrangements.
Right. Yeah. And so everyone was playing dumb. They were like, "Oh, we don't have any room for him." I'm like, "Well, he's an 05, in the Navy. That's a senior officer. He should get his own stateroom." But nobody was giving me rooms, and I'm like, "Hey, sir. Look, I need to have a conversation with some folks, but in the meantime, my room is a 2-man, and I'm the only one in there. You can sleep in there if you want."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, I don't care." I'm like, "Shit, let's make it happen."
Yeah.
Well, once the Navy found out that an 05 was bunking with a Marine 03, they were like, "Okay, now we've magically found him a room."
Right.
But I remember that team, and I remember. Yeah, Commander Robbins being a great. I think he's long retired. He was also prior enlisted SEAL.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then he became an officer.
Yeah.
Do you remember his Master Chief?
Yeah.
Really skinny guy.
What I remember about him is he was just eating in the wardroom with everybody, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" And
yeah.
Like, I was like, "Doesn't matter though."
Yeah. I remember
But,
he came to our space, the Ewok.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking to that Master Chief, and he told us that he hated diving, and I was like, "What? You're a Navy SEAL,
Right?
Like sea, air, land,
Right,
like sea being the first letter." He's like, "Yeah, I hate diving."
He's like, "When you guys get me off this boat?"
Yeah, that's
trying
He
to
did
get
not
onto
want to
the
be on the
beach.
ship.
I am totally drawing blanks here.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember any of them.
There was 2
coming
teams
on.
that came on board, two separate times for 2 different missions, and we would basically just insert them, and we left them where they were at, and we rolled out to wherever we were going next.
Yeah.
But
I remember them coming on board, but I do not remember. I can't put faces or anything. Can't remember any of it.
the first set of them were all bearded out. The second set were clean cut.
When I was the CCO of the New Orleans, we had a SEAL team come on and do the same
so
thing.
the first
birth
team,
with me too, just like Dustin.
The first team was likely a detachment from the unit that I retired from.
Yeah, good to go. Good times.
It's the same. It's the same culture.
So we did a lot of freaking missions. We were pretty busy. I don't know if that's how Immune normally is. With all those exercises and missions we were doing and everything.
Yeah, it's
I
usually
thought we were
packed.
pretty busy.
We did some work. Well, I was telling Ben on the way up here, we did some work off of South Korea. Kim Jong-un got a little upset, started launching warheads into the sea, wasting money. He's just launching them into the sea.
Yeah.
He's pissed off. He's just shooting missiles out. Okay, what are you going to do, dude?
Yeah.
We had Iran, the little Iranian boats freaking chasing us.
Yeah.
We
had one of our air wings go into, what was it, Oman? They landed in Oman for a while. They were doing airstrikes in certain locations. But,
Yemen.
Yeah. Or Yemen, they were doing airstrikes in. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, we were very busy,
I do also, there's so many memories I have. I remember the New Orleans, remember the CCO was Davis?
I don't remember this.
Davis,
maybe as you tell the story.
So the New Orleans CCO was screwing up really bad on our ship-to-shore plans. I mean, he was just mistake after mistake after mistake. So I started with emails, right? And it wasn't getting through. And then I would call him, and it was not getting.
Oh, did you fly over there?
Oh, so I went to the Commodore, and I said, "Sir, we're off the coast of Djibouti. We're running ship to shore ops." And
I remember that.
I was like, "Sir, I need to LCAC to the shore." And I tried to keep it down, and he was like, "CCO, you're not leaving the ship."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Sir, I need to go to the New Orleans, and I need to flame spray somebody." And he was like, "Oh, okay. How long is it going to take?" I'm like, 6 hours.
Yeah.
It'll take me 6 hours, and I'll be back.
Yeah.
So I LCAC'd myself ashore to Djibouti, which looks like Mars, by the way.
Yeah.
That place is disgusting.
Oh, yeah. Shit on the beach.
Yeah, shitting on the beach. And while we were there, actually, when I was waiting to leave, there was a goat that came up onto the LCAC, and we couldn't leave until that goat. We couldn't move the goat. We had to let it like roam around. So I was following around this goat, just talking shit. Like, who do you think you are? Like, I had to just beat the hell out of you. Anyway, I LCAC'd to Djibouti. I went to another LCAC and then LCAC'd my way to the New Orleans. And as I'm walking up the steel beach, Davis is there, and he's like, "Hey, I didn't know the Fibron was here." And I just shotgun blasted that dude for about an hour, and then LCAC'd my way back to the Boxer.
Yeah.
And showed up for dinner.
I think they screwed up every single load plan. Like, we would have that plan put together like perfect. Like, this is all you gotta do, and they would screw
They just
it up
want to
somehow.
load the LCACs, right?
Oh, it's almost like we would email it to them, and they would be like, "That's cool."
Yeah.
Delete.
Basically,
Wouldn't follow anything. Yeah,
I
Who's-
do
who
remember,
was
I
the
do
other
remember kind
CCO?
of.
You remember
Pollard.
Pollard? That's right.
But remember, before him was Onak.
I do remember the New Orleans CEO kind of butting heads with the Commodore. They kind of wanted to do his own thing a lot of the time.
That's because the Commodore was a SWO, and New Orleans CO was an 06 Aviator who also had a star in mind.
Oh, yeah.
And so he thought he just ruled the roost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he could. I don't think he handled being a ship CO very well.
It's weird how they put aviators in the ship CO positions, right?
Well, that's
so they get that experience.
That's their deep draft command at sea time.
Right.
When I was the Denver CCO in Sasebo, I had 3 aviator commanders, and actually, ironically, the first one was, and they're all nuke power trained fixed wing aviators,
Right.
And the first one was a nuke Hornet pilot, and he was our CO for a year. Anyway, fast forward, he ended up being a 2-star. He was the Military Sea Lift Command.
Oh, wow.
Commander, and now he's retired in Raleigh. Mike Wetlaufer, and him and I have coffee every now and then.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy cow,
Yeah,
dude.
he
That's
retired
crazy.
earlier this year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so he's I have coffee with Wetlaufer all the time, and that's awesome.
Good to go, man.
Yeah.
Well, other good things about that deployment, hitting the gym.
Oh yeah,
Right, hitting the gym, I got the biggest I've ever been on that deployment. 235. I tore my pants. I had to have my wife fly or ship new pants to me because I couldn't get them because I was wearing the green digis.
That's right.
That now the whole Navy wears. Back then it was just Expeditionary was wearing that.
Well, if you remember at Sunday brunch, you had to work out to save room for Sunday
Oh,
brunch.
We were
Sunday
just
brunch was
talking
good.
about that the other day over
the
text
brunch.
messages.
Yeah.
I haven't been to a better brunch since that.
Ever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, ever.
Well, one thing also you learn is to become friends with the cooks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
The wardroom cooks.
That's
Become
right.
their friends, hook them up, they hook you up.
That's
dude.
right.
So
Well, I think it just, of course you want to be friends with them, but you also, at least coming from an enlisted background, it always helped me to remember that, the guys and gals behind the counter that were serving food and cooking chow were easily overlooked.
Oh, yeah.
And so I usually tried to go out of my way to thank them or help them or whatever I needed. And so case in point, whenever the coffee would run out, I would they kept the coffee in these big filters in a box underneath where the coffee machine was. And if the coffee ran out, I would pull the box out and start changing the coffee filter. Well, that would drive the sailors crazy because now an officer is changing the coffee, and I guess that's like not supposed to happen in the Navy.
Yeah. I don't know.
It didn't really matter to me, and they would rush down. They'd be like, "Sir, I got it." And I would say, "Look, man, I can do this.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about it. You don't have to change coffee." The laundry thing, which by the way, let's talk about the laundry thing. In the Navy, the enlisted sailors picking up officers' laundry, I never understood that. I think that's the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
Didn't they have their own laundromat on the ship? Wasn't there like your self-serve and then you had like the ship's laundry? I would just do self-serve.
I would do all self-serve the
self-serve.
entire time.
Yeah, so I think the ship's laundry was for uniforms because the uniforms were harder on the self-serve laundry. So I get the uniforms part. If you put in that like industrial size tumblers. But do your own fucking laundry, man.
Exactly.
But there were Marines would come on board and they would be like, "Oh, the Navy's gonna do my laundry, great!" And they would treat it as if like they were servants. And I'm like, this.
Yeah.
This is anyway. Navy, if you're listening, get rid of the
Right.
Get rid of the laundry thing.
Right.
Like that,
right.
you can do your own laundry.
That's probably like a Navy tradition thing. But my first ship was like a very small ship. So the enlisted and officers, we were like basically very close.
Yeah.
I assume on other ships it's more separated, like officers are officers, enlisted are enlisted.
I'm sure if you went to a carrier, it probably wouldn't.
Oh
even
my
worse.
God, dude, probably. But yeah, my first ship, the guys that were cooking the food and all that, I was the commo, so I was in charge of internet. I'm in charge of phones.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in charge of communication. So I'd hook them up with extra internet and
You need
stuff.
that POTS line in my room. Give me that
right.
POTS line.
I'm like, you let me have 2 meals at dinner. I'll get you extra internet.
Yeah,
dude, you know?
done.
So,
That's done. What would give you a key to the wardroom? I don't think you can have all this.
exactly. So, but yeah, good times, man. Good times on that deployment.
Yeah.
Learned a lot. I will say, because I got out of the Navy after that deployment, and I'll say that what I learned in the Navy has helped me in my civilian world, running a business, but that deployment specifically, working on a staff, learning how to interact with different people, which you guys taught me how to do that, because obviously I messed it up the first time I addressed a Marine major as bro, right?
He was a nobody, so anyway.
Right. But learning how to interact, also those briefings, dude. For me, because I'd never done any of that. Obviously, you guys grew up in that world, but for me, that's a big deal. Public speaking.
Yeah.
You're standing up in front of a huge crowd. Obviously I gained my confidence very quickly, but it's intimidating at first. You got to brief things. You're getting questioned. You got to respond to those questions, crisis response. So I think that really helped me in my development as a business owner, as a civilian. And that's why I think a lot of people that don't know what they want to do in life, maybe just go in the military.
Yeah.
You'll pick up a lot of skills. You'll learn a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's going to help you later in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but do you guys have any closing thoughts, like things that you learned in the military, in the Marines, and all your experiences? What can people take away from that? I know, Dustin, you've already talked a little bit about, hey, there's bigger things out there than you think. If you're at the top of the mountain, you're not there yet,
Yeah.
But if you had like some key takeaways, some key lessons learned.
Yeah, if you ever think you're on top of the mountain, that you've reached the pinnacle in anything, you're in danger in some way, shape, or form, and you should take a step back. And
because that's letting your ego take over.
That's right. You are in danger if you think that, I'm on it. I'm on top of it. I have reached the top. You are in big trouble. The other thing I would tell you is that to your point about there's just a lot of world out there that you just don't know. I would tell anybody listening, whether you're considering the military or not, 2 things that I think are probably the most critical. One, you have to be self-reliant. And by that, I mean, learn how to solve your own problems. If things turn south or things get sideways in life, don't always look for somebody to come save you, because a lot of times nobody is coming to save you.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to figure things out for yourself. Or there's other people depending on you to figure it out. So like if you know this, if you have a family, if you get a wife, you got kids, a husband, kids, whatever your situation is, when life goes south, nobody is coming to save you.
Right.
And so you better figure it out. And then the other piece of it is learn how to be a critical thinker. I think a lot of people nowadays, they're in their phones, they're in Instagram, they're on social media. They're looking for the answer from other people rather than finding the answer for themselves. So, learn how to think. Don't learn what to think. Learn how to find information. Look for opposing viewpoints and consider them. And gather information to make your own decisions. And I think that prevents you from being influenced any which way, because there's a lot of agenda and there's a lot of information warfare out there. So learning how to think for yourself and make a good decision, I think, is critical.
And it might not always be the best decision, but hey, make a decision.
Yeah.
Figure out if it was the right decision or not, and then modify what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I those same lessons, like being a critical thinker, something I talk about every day with the people that I work with.
Yeah.
And then when some shit hits the fan, I'm like, no excuses, dude. Think about what we're going to do to modify the future.
That's right.
Because when shit hits the fan, you come up with excuses. It's already over. Shit's already hit the fan.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking about what happened, you want to learn lessons from what happened, right? But you don't want to come up with excuses about why shit hit the fan.
Yeah,
it's just like, okay, how can we prevent this type of thing from happening in the future to the best of our ability?
That's right.
Doesn't mean it won't happen, but how are you going to mitigate the risk, which is what we learned in staff work too, mitigating risk. we're still going to be taking risks, obviously.
Yeah.
But how are you going to mitigate risk, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to critically think, all those types of things,
Yeah.
you know? So definitely heavy hitters, you know? Nick, what do you got for
No, I mean,
major lessons learned?
Definitely what Dustin said. I mean, I think if for those listening, if you're thinking about the military and you're not sure, I mean, I definitely think it's a good choice, something I'm pushing my kids to hopefully go to, just because I think it does instill that confidence that you need to be successful in life. Being a leader, just getting things done, taking care of yourself and your family.
I know one thing Nick learned. Networking.
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 Networking. Get your strings in place all around the world.
Networking.
You know?
Yes, it definitely helps with networking.
But that is a serious thing, networking.
It is,
right?
yeah.
Community relations, having relationships across different fields, across different areas. It's not that you're trying to manipulate people, but you have a real relationship.
I did not like. I always heard that network, and I was like, yeah, but I never really thought of it as that way. I was just like, you know, as long as you make your friends. Some people use networking at a whole different level, where like their mindset is, I need to meet this person, become friends with them because they have an objective to get. Like I've just always tried to be genuine in my friendships that I meet with people, and it's worked out to my advantage. But again, coming out of the Marine Corps, I mean, because of those relationships I made, genuine relationships, it's helped me in my life.
Right.
And when you're looking for a job and you don't have those relationships, like I honestly don't know how people find jobs sometimes. Like it is really, really crazy looking at trying to get a job without knowing somebody. Everything seems to be has to be an in everywhere you go.
Oh, for sure.
It seems like,
especially the higher echelon jobs.
Yeah, that post-military life, that job, that's probably a whole nother podcast that you could do.
For sure.
the networking thing is interesting because I always saw people that had their own recipe for success. There were some people that were convinced networking was the key to getting ahead. There were other people that were convinced that being very book smart, I know the black and white better than anybody else. That was their recipe for success. Others were just hey, I'm just going to be really good at doing the job.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody kind of had their own recipe. Obviously, Nick's was networking.
Yeah.
Mine, I think, was always I was just going to be invincible. At least I convinced myself that I was going to pick the hardest thing that nobody else wanted to do. That's what I was going to do. And I'm a bit of a contrarian, actually a lot of contrarian, where if you say, hey, there's danger over there, you shouldn't go. That's exactly where I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going to go peek.
I'm going right. No, I'm not going to peek. I'm going in like now.
Right.
So,
he's diving in.
I'm diving in. Like I'll
he's
do
going
it.
to get shit done.
Even
too.
though in the back of my mind I was telling myself this is really dumb and this is going to hurt really bad. But yeah, this is how I. Anyway.
Yeah.
The networking thing post military is huge, and what I'll tell you is if you do a podcast that talks about the post military life, especially if you retire, there's a lot of things they tell you that are flat out lies about moving from the military to private industry, the commercial world.
It's very humbling.
It is a slap in the face. Not a slap in the face. It's a cold glass of water in the face where you have to wake up really fast, and it's not very easy. And we could do another show on it.
I think we should do a podcast in the future.
I would tell you that
especially with y'all's lessons learned going from retirement into
I think that would be helpful because especially nowadays there's a lot of veterans getting out and there's a lot that are struggling and on a lot of different levels. One, they've got mental health issues or they can't find a job and they've got families or there's a lot of stories out there that veterans are struggling bad.
Right.
And I've certainly learned a lot in my post-military work, and there's a lot of it that was very hard for me.
Yeah.
I learned a lot of things that the hard way that I wish I would have learned, or I wish I was told prior to having learned them the hard way. So anyway, I hope you do that. If you do, we need to come back.
Yeah, we should definitely link up for that.
Yeah.
I'll say me personally, being a business owner, I'm trying to find veterans, to work. It's been a little bit of a struggle because I'm in a unique industry and then it's a whole new skill set people have to learn. I actually have a Marine right now. I would say former Marine, but once a Marine, always a Marine.
That's
so
right.
you never say former Marine.
That's right.
Yeah. If I lived closer, I'd join you, but it's a little far of a drive to go every day.
But, you know, the reason why I like veterans is because obviously I've been through the military. We're familiar with a lot of military guys. And, of course, not every veteran's going to be the same. You know, everyone's had a little bit of a different experience, but they've typically pushed through things. They've learned things, and they're willing to get after it and get things done for the most part, right? For the most part, not every case, right? But, we just recently got approved by the Department of Labor for our apprenticeship program.
Oh, awesome.
And now approved for the VA apprenticeship program, so veterans will have benefits, you know, with us whenever they're going through these things, so they can use their GI benefits and things like that. But, you know, there's a lot of things you got to learn going through that process. When I was getting out, and again, I only did like 4.5, 5 years, but I still went through the transition classes, and I learned a bunch of shit, dude. I don't know if they still do those classes, but back then it was TAPS, I think.
They do. And there's a lot of people that complain about them, and I would say that anybody that TAP, the transition program, is you're going to get out of it what you put into it. If you get drugged through those classes and you're like, this is dumb, I don't even know why I'm here, then you're not going to get anything out of it. But if you attack them like you would anything else, and you're like, hey, I'm here, and just like I mentioned when we first started, this is the life I've chosen. I've chosen to get out, or I'm getting out for whatever reason, and this is my business. I need to learn how to transition. I personally got a lot out of them, out of those classes, but what I got out of them was areas that I had no idea about. Like, I have no idea how to do a resume. I need to go figure out how to do that. TAPS introduced me to the fact I had no idea what I was doing, but then I had to go do my own thing.
Right.
Find my own information.
Right.
And so they still run it, but I would tell people that you've got to be your own problem solver too.
I will say I went to TAPS, and I was like just checking a box. I didn't even want to learn from it because I had already lined up this thing where I was going to work for another company.
Yeah, you're going to be a
dog trainer.
I was going to be a dog trainer for a different company.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to be the
remember that.
Well, the harbor pilot.
Harbor
That was my first plan, and then it switched to dog training.
And well, I kind of did the same thing with the task because I was lined up for sheriffs. You know, I had ins in there and everything, and I still paid attention, but I was more focused on kind of like the retirement side of it. Where as that class, you got everybody. You know, you got 4-year guys, you got 8-year guys, you got retirees. So I do think they should separate it into like, if you're a retiree, it should be
because it's a whole different ball game.
Completely different.
Right.
Completely
different.
Because there's a lot of other things that you're interested in. Whereas if you're 4 years, you're looking for just the resume and just kind of some of the benefits you could use. But I kind of did the same thing. I was like checking a box, took notes on some stuff, and then that sheriff thing didn't work out. I was kind of like, dang, I was pulling up my book with all my little notes that I took during it. I was like, how do I do this or that?
Well, when I was in TAPS, because I was just checking the box. I thought I was working for this other company, whatever. They start talking about being a business owner, and they were like, hey, you need to go to the business owner course because even though you're not a business owner, you're like working for this other company, you still need to do it. I was like, all right. So I go there to check the box. I start learning the company I'm working for. Not good to go from a business perspective. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Open my eyes. You know, the bail team you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And then I actually was like, hey, I need to meet with you guys on the side, the guys that were running the class. And I was like, I need to talk to you about my situation. And I basically told them what's going on. They were like, you got to get out of this. You got to get away from this business. Yeah. They're like, you should run your own business. I was like, fuck, I don't want to do that. And then here we are, running my own business. But
and for the listener, the bail team was the banker, the accountant, the insurance agent, and the lawyer.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 key critical pieces that a business owner needs to have, or high net worth clients. They got to have them. They got to have it. Yeah, they got to have them.
And then on the lawyer side, there's different lawyers for different things.
That's right.
So for your intellectual property, depending on the level of what you're doing, you have a lawyer for that. Liability, you have a lawyer for that. You know, business, you have a lawyer for. So like once you get to the lawyer side, which I didn't find out till after I was in the shit. Yeah. Right. You find out, there's different lawyers for different things. Yeah. Right. So
same thing with accountants. Accountants, CPAs, they specialize. Are you a nonprofit? Are you a small business, large business, et cetera? Yeah.
And don't be afraid to like change your person. You know, if something's not working out with your accountant, for example, switch your accountant over to somebody else. Yeah. You know, don't feel like you're stuck with somebody.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I might be hitting you up here in the future because I started an LLC and I need some guidance and I might need some assistance, and maybe the next time we get together, maybe this thing I got in my head might be actually worth something that at that point. So we'll see.
Happy to help from I've got a bunch of LLCs now.
Yeah.
Because also you learn as you go.
Mm-hmm.
There's different reasons why you have different LLCs for tax purposes, for liability purposes, but you got to protect yourself no matter what. You know?
Yeah. So yeah.
And set yourself up right.
Yeah. When I get through the program I told you about, I'm gonna have to.
Oh yeah.
Dig into Chad's books.
Oh yeah, dig into my books and provide counsel.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you got the inside
provide
scoop,
the counsel
bro.
there.
I would tell you that from a business perspective, there are two things. One, recognizing the need for change in business, and then actually changing are two areas that a business owner has to be able to do. You have to recognize the need to change, and you have to actually change.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there was a Army general, I can't remember his name, but he said if you don't like change, you'll hate irrelevance. And the market gets a vote, and if you don't change with the market, then you won't be in business anymore.
100%, dude. 100%.
Yeah,
I had to learn that lesson real hard one time.
My boss was just telling me about a book to read, the Blue Whale strategy. I wrote it down inside my desk because I was telling him about my business, and he was like, "You need to read that because it kind of talks about that. Like, there's 1,000 dog training companies. What sets yours apart?
Exactly.
Why do you need to be different? Why do people want to go to you versus them?" And kind of the book really talks about that and how to make your business stand up from another business, because like I said, there's people everywhere trying to do the same thing you're trying. They're all trying to get ahead.
And like Dustin said, this year is 1 year. Society changes next year. So you have to manipulate and change what you're doing. Like Ben here runs our social media and everything. And if I know you guys are watching the reels. I know you guys are watching, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But like with him, we meet once a month, and it's like, hey, what are the trends? What's changing? What do we have to do?
Yeah.
And we got to constantly. If you scroll all the way back to our first post ever, way different than what we're posting now.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, you'll fall off.
I think I saw yesterday Chris's, or was it today? I saw you just posted one like with Chris. Day of a Life of a Dog Trainer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but
Chris,
I'll check
former
it out.
law enforcement guy.
Yeah,
I had to convince him to become a dog trainer. I had to convince him. I was like, "Hey, we have donuts over here too.
No,
we
nice.
have coffee over here." He's like,
Well,
"Oh."
I did tell
He follows
Dustin
the
and
donuts.
Tony that me and my brother and a couple of my buddies went down to Chaz, and we did some training together.
Yeah.
And we had a good time doing that.
I missed
Yeah.
that. I forgot where I was, but
you had something going on.
I saw the pictures. And I was like, man, next time you do
Hopefully
that,
you come next time.
I'm throwing down.
Do it in the spring.
Next time you can just drive down here and you can ride with us, because that'd be a real long drive for you at that point.
No, man, I'm a road warrior, man. I burn the road.
Well, 6 hours.
Well,
up,
you got to
6
be
hours
careful,
down.
bro. You got the Ford. You got to be careful. Dude.
Yeah.
Which
I got
Chris,
AAA though.
You'll meet Chris. Which
doesn't
Nick
work in North
Chris.
Carolina. I tried. I had to cancel it.
Really?
Oh yeah, they came out. They tried to fix my wife's tire, and then they didn't even know where the tire was, how to get it off. Then they left. I showed up, and I was in New Mexico at the time. I show up, the next day, it's still parked in the parking lot. Pulled the spare out, changed it out, went and put it back on.
Well, I'll tell you what.
How do they do this?
I love my Ford. For all you listeners, Ford, it's treated me pretty good.
Well, what I was going to say is I know Nick's met Chris, but Chris is a Ford guy.
Okay.
He's a Ford guy. I'm a Dodge guy, obviously. And I have pictures.
And I'm Chevy.
Yeah.
I have pictures of the Dodge jumping the Ford. I have pictures of the Dodge pulling the Ford out of mud. So, the Dodge, at least in our situation, has historically saved the Ford. So if you need help, just let me know.
As a great prophet once said, it's fake news.
Quick story for you guys, Ford versus Dodge, but we had a dump truck get stuck in some mud. We're working on building a facility, so we got some fill dirt coming in. Dump truck gets stuck in the mud. Chris takes his Ford over there. It's an F-250, right? Gets it hooked up to the dump truck. It's about to blow up. I'm like, stop.
Oh, shoot.
Unhook the F-250. Get it out of here. Bring the Ram over. No problem. Pulls the dump truck right out.
No problem. It's because the Ford kind of got it unstuck, and then that was 80% of the hard work.
That is a confirmed story. So Dustin, when you come down for the next event, you can ask Chris to confirm that. He will confirm the story.
I need a full reenactment. I want to see it.
So with the facility, how is that coming along? I know
it's coming along good. So another thing you learn in business is you have these big dreams, right? You have these big plans. Then you start getting down to the cost of these plans and dreams, and it starts to change things rapidly, right? Yeah. So, we've manipulated our facility plan to match our budget and everything, because also we're balancing out budget, right? When you run a business, you got payroll, you got taxes, which is why I need more help in tax. Any tax help I can get, I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
But, you got to balance all these things out, right? And so taking on a project like that's a big deal, but we're getting there. Hopefully we start construction next year.
Nice.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm just, bringing in materials myself, kind of cash flow in that to offset cost of loans and things like that. So
cash flow is key in a business.
Cash flow.
You gotta have
cash flow
it.
is king.
Yeah.
So Patrick Bet David,
That's right.
Big guy, big deal. Learned a lot from him. We were talking about him earlier, but
yeah, PBD, if you're listening, huge fan.
Yeah,
we love you.
100%. So, but anyway, not to keep dragging this out. We'll talk more later with off the mic with you guys. But thank you guys for coming on the podcast. Really good to meet up with you guys, link up with you guys, and appreciate everything you've taught me and helped me learn as we've gone on here, and will continue to help me learn right as we move forward here. But real quick before we wrap up, I got to talk about our affiliates, just so you guys know. First of all, we've got Canine Revolution Dog Training, premier dog training across the country. And I don't know if you guys know this, but we're opening a location in Texas, Waco, Texas.
Oh, that is awesome. Did not know that.
We've
That's
got
huge.
I got some family out there.
Do you?
They own a huge ranch.
Okay.
I will definitely.
In Waco area?
Yeah, Waco. They Blue Hills Ranch.
Okay.
So
definitely would like to link up with them.
yeah,
because we've
Sounds
got
like a new dog training facility to me.
Heck
Just saying.
yeah, dude.
it's huge. I'll definitely link you guys up.
Yeah.
My cousin's the owner of it.
Nice, dude.
So-
Nice. And so we got a trainer. Her husband is former Air Force, Chair Force.
Yeah.
But, speaking of the Air Force, real quick story. I was just on vacation in Hawaii. I'm at this luxurious resort. I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
Guess who's there? Some freaking Air Force dudes that are on a training mission.
Of course.
Staying at the resort.
Of course they are.
And so I'm walking to the resort gym in the morning. It's 5 a.m. These guys are in uniform. They're walking out. I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Like, we're going out for our training day. I'm like, how are you staying here? Oh, Air Force. I'm like, of course.
Yeah, of
Get
course.
out of here.
My buddy in the Coast Guard just got back from 2 weeks in Hawaii.
Really?
He's the Coast Guard Reserve. He went out there for his 2
Holy
weeks
cow,
training.
dude. Oh my God, are you
Yeah.
serious? So anyway, we got this trainer, her husband, former Air Force, now basically a FAA employee, and he's air traffic control. They're moving him out to Waco, so she's moving out there. Wants to dog train. She's like, Canine Revolution, I want to take it there. I'm like, let's go, dude. Let's go.
Awesome.
So she's going out there starting in November. So if you're a listener in the central United States or western, we got you covered, dude. You ain't got to travel to South Carolina anymore. You travel to Texas.
Awesome.
Right? Which we got people driving from California to us. We got people driving from Texas to South Carolina for training. It's crazy.
That's awesome.
But so anyway, opening up this location in Texas. We got our location in South Carolina. If you need dog training, board and train programs, private lessons, virtual lessons, whatever you need. So what you do is you email us, info@caninerevolutiondogtraining.com, or call or text 843-213-2676. We'll hook you up. You'll be good to go. No factor. Our next affiliate, Canine Revolution Apparel, which is our apparel. Bottom line, right? So you go to Amazon, you click the link below. We've got dog training shirts. We've got Canine Revolution shirts, also chicken shirts. Dustin, when you come out to my place, I'll introduce you to my chickens, bro.
Oh, I'm
and
there.
his guineas.
I got 40 chickens. I got 40 guinea fowl. I got a peacock. I got cats. I got dogs. I got 2 goats now.
Oh yeah, heck yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're coming down, bro.
All day.
And so we got chicken shirts. We got guinea shirts. We got hoodies. We got coffee. Whatever you need, right? Canine
What'd you say,
Revolution coffee mugs.
Oh, done.
We also got our
Done.
good to go shirts. So if you need to be good to go, you go on Amazon, you go to Canine Revolution Apparel, get your good to go shirt. Now you're good to go. You're good to go, and your family's good to go.
Solid.
And America's good to go, right? Because you are America.
That's right.
You're supporting America. Anyway, our next one is We Feed Raw, which is a dog food raw company, which what they do is they ship raw food to your house. You don't have to go anywhere and buy it. It's optimally put together for your dog from a PhD canine nutritionists. Mm-hmm. They ship it to your house. You feed it to your dog. Your dog is now optimized, right? So for us, we need beef. We need bacon. We need chicken. We need white rice. We need sweet potatoes. Mm-hmm. This kind of shit, right?
Yeah.
Good food. Your
Speaking
dog
my
needs,
language right now.
Right. Your dog needs your dog needs optimal diet. For them, that's a raw diet. That's a raw diet. So you go to WeFeedRaw.com, discount code Canine Revolution, all caps, no spaces. That gets you 25% off a meal plan. If you don't like the meal plan, you'll cancel it, but guess what? You won't, because you'll like it. Your dog will like it. You'll be good to go.
Solid.
Right? Next affiliate is Canine Super Supplements, which is supplements for dogs. So they've got like powdered supplements, joint support, multivitamin, weight gainer. We do train dogs, and we have some dogs that are hard gainers. You guys know hard gainers, right? You've probably seen some in the Marine Corps. And you put them on the weight gainer, now they're jacked.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Where they had that for dogs too.
They have it for dogs, dude.
Good. Yeah,
That's a weight gainer for dogs.
Looks like the dog's been in the penitentiary a few years.
Exactly,
They're coming
bro.
out jacked.
Exactly. You put whiskey.
Yeah.
You put whiskey on weight gainer, she's freaking jacked, dude.
It's gonna be like one of those dogs with instead of a 6-pack, actually like a keg.
Next thing you know, whiskey's out here doing burpees. So you're like, I have no idea what just happened.
Barrel of whiskey.
So if you have a dog and you want some supplements for them, or if you don't want to put them on a raw diet, these can kind of get that raw diet benefit to your dog. But you go to caninesupersupplements.com, discount code Canine Revolution, all caps, no spaces, 15% off. Try it out. You'll like it. You'll keep getting it. Good to go. Your dog will be good to go.
Solid.
But we do train a lot of dogs that are hard gainers, right? They're just skinny for whatever reason. We put them on that weight gainer, dude. Boom. They get to a healthy weight, no problem. Shit's crazy.
Awesome.
No.
Last but not least, what you guys are drinking now, Jocko Fuel. What'd you guys think?
Like
hey, look,
We
Jocko,
fucking
look,
popping?
I'm feeling it right now. Like I'm if Jocko, if you're listening, bro, solid work here. This
Well,
is
you
good
got some
stuff.
for the road, too. Because,
Oh,
Dustin's got to drive.
Oh,
know.
yeah, I'm going to burn that down easy. One of these things. This is going to be an easy drive.
You guys will have some cases shipped to your house, but they got these energy drinks, which is clean energy.
Yeah.
Because,
Very good.
back in the day, what did we drink? Monster?
Monsters.
Bullshit.
Rockstar,
Yeah.
Monster.
Bullshit. Also made in China, bro.
all
Monster
made
made
in
in China. Rockstar made in China. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Also, it's Big Pharma trying to get us.
Of course.
Right? So what Jocko do, he got the clean energy, sourced in America, made in America. No bullshit in it.
Yeah.
We're taking back America.
Yeah.
And Canine Revolution is helping him do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Love
we
it.
are helping him do that.
Love it.
Nice.
So you can go to jockofuel.com. You can get some clean energy. They also got clean protein powder. They call it milk. So, my kids are 5 and 7. I know y'all's kids
You're
are a little bit older. So what I do, dude, is he's got the ready-to-drink chocolate milk. My kids are like, I want chocolate milk. I'm like, sure, babe. I go get chocolate milk.
Love it.
I'm like, here's your chocolate milk. They didn't realize I said milk instead of milk.
Yep.
They pound it. Boom. Now they're good to go,
Yep.
dude.
They're hard
good to
gainers.
go.
They're hard gainers. They're on the weight game plan. Heck yeah.
But he's got basically any supplement you need, so check it out, jockofuel.com. Definitely shift over to that if you're taking some China shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Discount code Canine Revolution, 10% off. You'll be thanking America, thanking yourself for doing that later.
Heck yeah.
Right?
That's awesome.
But we also provide consulting for business owners, dog trainers. If a dog trainer is somewhere around the world, they need some help learning how to run their dog training business, they can contact us. We'll help them out. But don't forget to check out Pack Talk Podcast on YouTube, Canine Revolution Dog Training on YouTube. Thank you guys again for coming in. Thank you for your service. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Devil dogs, right?
Thanks for having us.
I wasn't
Yeah.
a devil dog. I was a Navy guy, right?
Yeah,
But I liked hanging
Yeah,
out.
but you're a brother for
accepted.
life.
I
so
always,
yeah.
I always hung out with you guys on
right.
Navy.
Yeah,
That's right.
Might as well be.
So, but anyway, thank you to the listener for listening. And until next time, this is Pack Talk Podcast. Out.